Chapter 1. Ranking List of Handsome Guys and Beauties. Ji Xia stopped in front of Lin Xiaozhu. Just now, he made his 99th affectionate confession to Lin Xiaozhu. Lin Xiaozhu was slightly moved. Even a stone will be a little shaken when faced with 99 confessions. Xiaozhu, let's go. Don't forget that Senior Chun also asked us to have dinner together on the weekend. Her best friend Lu Mingming tugged on her sleeves and said in a low voice. Lin Xiaozhu gently lifted up her black hair, revealing her beautiful face, and her tone was slightly apologetic. Thank you. It's an honor for me to be liked by you, but I have no plans to fall in love yet. If I want to talk, I will definitely consider you. So let's continue to be friends now. Okay. The same words again. Ji Xia didn't know how many times she heard this, and her ears almost became calluses. However, Ji Xia was not angry and even breathed a sigh of relief. He glanced at Lu Mingming with a hint of gratitude. If she hadn't reminded him, Lin Xiaozhu would have agreed to his confession. Then all his previous efforts were in vain? Fortunately, I have you. My cuteness. Lu Mingming was frightened by his strange gaze and tugged on Lin Xiaozhu's sleeve again. Xiaozhu, let's go back. Then let's do this for now. Lin Xiaozhu smiled at Ji Xia. Ji Xia looked very indifferent. Under Lin Xiaozhu's stunned eyes, he threw the flowers in his hands into the trash can, and the corners of his mouth slightly raised. Lin Xiaozhu frowned. The moment Ji Xia turned around, she seemed to see Ji Xia smiling. Lin Xiaozhu was not calm at all. Including this time, she rejected Ji Xia 99 times in total, after being rejected in the past. Although Ji Xia could not say that she wanted to live or die, she still stood there with a lonely look on her face and watched her leave quietly. However, this time, not only did Ji Xia not show any sad and lonely expression, she was actually still smiling. How dare he? After all, Lin Xiaozhu is also a school beauty. Is it something to be happy about being rejected by her? Lin Xiaozhu, who became more and more angry as he thought about it, kicked the trash can next to him hard. Yeah. Lin Xiaozhu was slightly absent-minded and couldn't control his strength. Under the pain, Lin Xiaozhu screamed in surprise. Xiaozhu, what's wrong with you? It's okay. Lin Xiaozhu waved his hand and continued to think with lowered eyebrows. Mingming, do you feel that something is wrong with Ji Xia today? Is there any? Lu Mingming fell into deep thought, thinking of the weird look in Ji Xia's eyes when he stared at her. There does seem to be something wrong, but it's understandable after all. He has confessed his love 99 times. It's normal to have one or two irregularities. Lin Xiaozhu felt that what her best friend said made sense. Ji Xia has rejected her 98 times before, so Ji Xia won't stop licking her just because of this one more time, right? Thinking of this, Lin Xiaozhu stopped worrying about Ji Xia's changes, took Lu Mingming's hand, and walked to the dormitory. The person who invited her to dinner on the weekend was Senior Chun, a famous figure in Manhwa University. When you meet him for the first time, you must leave a good impression on him. It would be bad if I got entangled with Ji Xia now and was misunderstood by Senior Chun. The corner of Ji Xia's mouth is now harder to press than AK. After being a licking dragon for more than half a year, it's finally over. A year ago, he became a dragon. To be precise, he became a giant dragon in another world. At the same time, he received the task of activating the system in his mind. The task is to fail to confess your love 99 times. What a bullshit mission. The education I received since childhood did not allow me to do this kind of thing. Feel sorry. I can't do anything to deceive a woman. System? Technique? Grandpa ring? I don't need it at all. You have become a giant dragon. What more do you need? After refusing to accept the task of activating the system, Ji Xia thought he could push all the way and live the life of Long Outyin from then on. However, the facts forced Ji Xia to lower her proud head. Don't talk about pushing all the way. In the beginning, Ji Xia couldn't even walk smoothly. The body structures of dragons and humans are very different. Those huge muscles and intricate bone structure. It took him several months just to fully adapt to that body. As for fluttering your wings and flying high, until now, he has never flown. With the body structure of the giant dragon, there is no possibility of flying at all. I really don't know how the same kind of people in that world can fly. If Newton knew about it, he would probably have to raise his coffin and shout how awesome he is. Yes, after all, this is a different world, and it may not be under Newton's control, but under the control of his brother Awesome. If you can't fly, let alone hunt. As soon as the prey caught a glimpse of Ji Xia's majestic figure from afar, they immediately fled in all directions without even being able to touch his shadow. Of course, We occasionally run into a few unlucky ones who are old, frail, or injured. But such luck doesn't happen every time. In order to reduce energy consumption and avoid starvation, Ji Xia had no choice but to condescend to the throne and live in seclusion in his lair, becoming a house dragon. Fortunately, the bodies of the two worlds are connected. In other words, as long as he is full in the real world, the dragon will not be hungry. But the problem is, even with several tons of food, Ji Xia is only 70% full. His family is relatively well off, but they can't stand what he does. Just over half a year ago, looking at his body that had lost more than 10 tons, Ji Xia resolutely accepted the task. Tongzi, how can I live without you? Congratulations to the host for completing the activation task. Confession failed 99 times. The system has been activated. Holding the system ownership certificate and the crossing permit in his hands, Ji Xia fell into deep thought. No, buddy, do you still have proof? So, you have always been a gangster before? No wonder you are so unlucky. You said earlier that you need a certificate to legally travel. How could I have struggled for so long? You have received a system activation gift package. The gift package includes the transformation ability and 5.23 million Chinese coins. Ji Xia took out her mobile phone and opened the bank card app. Sure enough, 5.23 million Huaxia coins arrived in the bank card 30 seconds ago. Why are there parts and holes? That's because he spent a total of 52,300 on Lin Xiaoju in the past 6 months. After activating the system, you will get a 100-fold rebate. If he hadn't known about this good thing in advance, how could Ji Xia, who couldn't even afford to eat, spend money on a tool man? In order not to starve to death, he sold all the houses in his name in the city. If his parents knew about this, they would definitely be served by the 7 wolves and clothes racks. However, now is not the time to think about this. Just a few days ago, he had spent all the money from selling the house. He was so hungry that his eyesight was dim, so he struggled to finish his confession. If he doesn't eat anymore, I'm afraid he will starve to death here. Master, go to Yongshun Slaughterhouse. Ji Xia stopped a taxi and gave the place name. Usually he only dares to eat some refrigerated meat to satisfy his hunger. Although it doesn't taste very good, refrigerated meat is cheap. It doesn't even think Ji Xia is poor. How dare Ji Xia think it tastes bad? Now that you have more than 5 million yuan in your pocket, why don't you eat fresh beef to satisfy your craving? Thinking of the past, Ji Xia felt a fire burning in her chest. The majestic dragon can only live in its lair eating refrigerated meat. What a shame for the dragon clan. Now that he has a system, he wants to eat fresh food every time. From now on, no one can teach him how to do things. Ji Xia looked at herself in the rearview mirror. A cold glint flashed in her eyes. Handsome guy, pay the fare. The driver knocked on the steering wheel and reminded, Oh, okay, I'll pass it on to you. Chapter 2. There is a reason why Lin Xiaoju was chosen as his tool. After all, Lin Xiaoju is pretty enough, so it won't be a loss if she catches her. Of course, those were just initial thoughts. As the number of failed confessions increased, Ji Xia had long forgotten this idea. I finally started a losing streak. I haven't stacked enough layers yet. Don't even think about ending my losing streak. Moreover, Lin Xiaoju is difficult to chase, not just ordinary. She is a smart person. She knows what is most important to girls, and she also knows what she is pursuing. Although Lin Xiaoju has had ambiguous scandals with many boys, she has never accepted anyone's confession. Her purpose has always been clear, that is, to marry into a wealthy family. Those of the opposite X who are attracted to her and have potential are just stepping stones for her to enter a wealthy family. The more high-quality men who fail to confess, the higher her potential value will be. She would not hand herself over easily before meeting a true descendant of the aristocratic family. Ji Xia flicked the cigarette ashes. Lin Xiaoju, you are really a qualified canary. Because of this, Ji Xia was certain that Lin Xiaoju would not accept his confession. No matter how many times he confesses, there is always the same result. She also became Ji Xia's perfect candidate for the failed mission of advertising. After eating and drinking enough, Ji Xia lay on the bed and fell asleep. When he opened his eyes again, he returned to the familiar dragon's nest. Yes, the key to another world is sleep. As long as Ji Xia falls asleep, he will wake up in this world as a dragon. At first Ji Xia thought it was a dream, but as he learned more about it, he gradually realized that this was a real world. If nothing else, Ji Xia eats according to a normal person's appetite. Before long, the acid in the stomach will begin to corrode the stomach wall, causing severe pain. Isn't this true enough? Later, he slowly accepted that he was a black dragon in another world and the overlord of the Lost Forest. Black Dragon, that's right. He is indeed the overlord of the Lost Forest. It's just that this overlord is a bit aggrieved to be true. What kind of overlord eats refrigerated meat every day? That house in the city sold for millions, but he consumed tons of refrigerated meat a day. One meal would cost hundreds of thousands. Even if I save money on food, the money from selling the house will only be enough to last 2 or 3 months. As a result, Ji Xia would sometimes sneak behind other large monsters. After they successfully capture the prey, he rushes out to grab the food from the tiger's mouth. He is not good at hunting, but he is still talented in fighting. It possesses almost unparalleled magic resistance and thick scale protection. Even if Ji Xia stood there and took the first round of beating, he could easily win in the end. Those monsters that were followed by him either left their prey and walked away, or they were beaten severely before walking away. Over time, his notoriety spread. Before hunting large monsters nearby, it will be determined in advance whether Ji Xia is nearby. With his huge dragon body, there is nowhere to hide. After discovering that Ji Xia was nearby, those monsters were destroyed immediately. Is that how you play? Then everyone will starve together. In fact, Ji Xia didn't want this either. He is a civilized dragon who has received 9 years of compulsory education. This kind of robbery is really insulting to politeness. Ji Xia also tried to communicate with intelligent high-level monsters, but he couldn't understand even a word of the language spoken by those monsters. In the end, it would often turn into Ji Xia spouting Chinese essence while other monsters speak in a language he doesn't understand. Both sides exchanged friendly greetings. Although he didn't understand it, Ji Xia was sure that they were scolding them very dirty. At the end of the scolding, he will start fighting with other monsters. I can't scold you, but I can't beat you. After defeating one monster after another, Ji Xia naturally became the overlord of the Lost Forest. The only thing that hasn't changed is that he can still only eat refrigerated meat. He really doesn't know how to hunt. So what if you are a good fighter? He can't fly. As long as others want to escape, he can't catch up. Over time, Ji Xia gained a special title in the human kingdom, the Benevolent King. The reason is that the black dragon in the Lost Forest will stand still and watch its opponent leave every time it wins a territory battle. This kind of behavior is rare among the cruel dragon clan. If Ji Xia knew that these humans actually humiliated him like this, he must have gone to the crop fields and winnowed all their wheat. What? Why not destroy the human kingdom? Because he was really afraid of the dragon-hunting crossbow at the top of the city. If you are shot by that thing, you will be bruised and bruised. Moreover, this is a world of swords and magic. It is said that several legendary Laodin have even slain dragons. He didn't want to provoke those legendary old men because of the destruction of the country. All in all, Ji Xia was very strong. Even among the dragon clan, he was at the top. During this year, he fought several dragons. Without exception, Ji Xia won in close combat, and he won by crushing. But the problem is, others can fly. He didn't want to continue to recall this tragic past. The transformation ability rewarded by system activation is already in his mind. With a thought, Ji Xia's body continued to shrink and finally became the size of a normal person. At this moment, he almost cried. Finally become a human in this world. The dragon's bestiality erodes his humanity at every turn. At a certain moment in the past, I met the fat little fairy next door who was professional and weighed 234 pounds. He actually felt that his features were beautiful. Well, how should I put it? It feels like a military kind of beauty. If he didn't come back unchanged, he was really afraid that one day his aesthetic would become deformed, and he would do something he would regret for the rest of his life. Now that we have a human body, many things will be easier to handle. Although he doesn't know the language of this world, he can speak Chinese. That's right. He is not the only one from China who has traveled to this world. Not only that, the people who traveled here even built a town near the Lost Forest. Before this, Ji Xia did not dare to contact the Chinese people. Others are still humans when they travel through time. So why do they turn into dragons? If there is too much contact and the identity is exposed, who knows what will happen next? In the second world, he is a giant dragon, but in Manhwa University, he is just a crispy college student. If someone really tied him up and sliced him for research, he would have no power to resist. There are 2 things in the world that cannot be looked at directly. One is the sun, and the other is the human heart. People are unpredictable. Ji Xia didn't dare to gamble with his life on human nature. Chapter 3. Stop. As soon as Ji Xia approached the town, he was stopped by several heavily armed soldiers. To be honest, the clothes of these people are a bit nondescript. He looks like a modern man, but he wears clothes made of animal skins and holds a rusty spear in his hand. If he hadn't known that this was a different world, Ji Xia might have thought that he was on the set of a historical drama. Brother, we are one of our own. Ji Xia pretended to be happy and greeted him warmly. Hearing that Ji Xia was speaking Chinese, the soldier's frown slightly relaxed, but he still maintained a trace of vigilance. What are you doing here? I traveled through time a few days ago after sleeping. When I saw someone here, I came over to take a look. Ji Xia looked innocent. This was Ji Xia's helpless move to protect herself. He can't say that he has been in this world for a year, right? Living alone for a year in the core area of the Lost Forest where high-level monsters are everywhere. I am afraid no one will believe it. By then, his identity will inevitably be doubted. There's no problem with the accent. It seems like he's indeed one of our own. The soldier breathed a sigh of relief and turned aside to make way into the town. By the way, little brother, after entering, remember to register with the guild and get an identity plate. In the future, you can use your identity plate to enter and exit the town. The soldier stopped Ji Xia and showed him the identity plate in his hand. It was a nameplate made of thin iron sheets, with neat Chinese characters engraved on it. So strict. Hearing Ji Xia's doubts, the soldier opened his mouth to explain. The indigenous people of this world do not welcome us travelers. Although no major conflicts have broken out so far, there are still frictions. They occasionally send some spies to try to sneak into the town. So we are required to strictly investigate suspicious persons. Ji Xia nodded slightly. Suddenly, he noticed something was wrong with the soldier's wording. Above? Hey, it's not the one you think. The soldier waved his hand. Does Dingsheng Group in Wanghai City know? We work for Dingsheng Group, and this is what Dingsheng Group requires. Although Ji Xia stayed in the second world for a year. But in fact, any time traveler knows more information than him, there was nothing he could do about it. Over the past year, he had either been sleeping in his lair or fighting with other monsters. There is no time to understand the situation in the outside world. After some conversation, Ji Xia finally got a general understanding. The time travel incident happened about a year ago. Like Ji Xia, others came to this world inexplicably after falling asleep. However, the first batch of travelers were few and far between. There are only a few who are alive to this day. At the same time, he also learned an important news. If you die here, the real world will die. Ji Xia was slightly scared, because he really tried to commit suicide in the second world. With the little savings he has, he really can't afford to support a dragon. So I thought about committing suicide to end it all, and no longer have to endure the torture of stomach acid burning the stomach wall. He jumped from a peak more than 2,000 meters high, but only scratched his skin. Fortunately, the dragon's skin is strong. Otherwise, in reality, the grass on his grave would probably be 2 meters high. The mass crossing occurred 3 months ago. In Wanghai City alone, there were nearly 10,000 more travelers. This caused quite a bit of panic. No one wants to die inexplicably in this strange world. Some time ago, travelers from Wanghai City contacted each other and built a small town here. Living together is more or less safer. Some people are frightened, while others see business opportunities. Dingsheng Group is one of them. Group executives believe that time travel may gradually expand over time. By then, the second world will become a new world with hundreds of wastes waiting to be revitalized. If we can plan ahead in the second world, we can seize the opportunity. It will bring immeasurable value to Dingsheng Group in the future. Since then, Dingsheng Group has begun to deploy in the second world and spend heavily to recruit time travelers. According to the soldier named Lu Yun, the salary offered to him by Dingsheng Group was 5 times that in the real world. Ji Xia's eyes were strange, and he looked Lu Yun up and down. In other words, you work at the construction site moving bricks during the day and work as a security guard at the gate of the town at night? Lu Yun rubbed the back of his head and smiled. You already know this, unbelievable. You are really outrageous. What kind of innate oxhorse holy body is this? 996 blessings can't satisfy you, right? You have to work overtime even if you sleep at night. If you really have nothing to do, it would be better to just glue it on than work overtime, right? You are committing suicide. How can you be a lackey of capitalists? Angry, Ji Xia smelled something unusual. If it is just for investment, there is no need for those companies to go to this point. That's 5 times the salary. It is enough for an ordinary worker to become a middle-class person with an annual income of hundreds of thousands. In doing so, it is more like they are cultivating a group of cronies and dead soldiers. You can question the character of rich people, but never doubt their vision. The time travel incident is gradually expanding, and it definitely does not happen out of nowhere. Could it be that they did this so that they could still dominate the world when they travel to the second world in the future? This may be biased. After all, Ji Xia, the giant dragon, was afraid that Dragon Slayer Lao Deng would come to his door. No matter how many cronies and dead soldiers they recruit, they will only have a few more cannon fodder in the face of absolute power. It should be said that they are afraid of death. The richer the person, the more afraid of death. They are afraid that they will die in another world inexplicably after being involved in a time travel incident. So spare no effort and plan ahead. Classmate Ji Xia, please sign this confidentiality agreement. Not Hyung. My special meow has gone to another world. You tell me there are still notes here? Seeing Ji Xia's hesitation, the guild staff pointed to the identity plate on his chest. My police number is 016XXX. If you can't believe it, you can go to the city police station to see me and we can discuss it face to face. Trust, trust, trust. With this tone and style of conduct, there is no need to doubt it at all. Ji Xia immediately signed his name on the confidentiality agreement. The staff put away the agreement with satisfaction. The second world is currently a high-level secret. Revealing it will cause unnecessary panic. I hope students can understand. Understand. Ji Xia nodded repeatedly. If some people knew that when they fell asleep, they might be pulled into an unknown and dangerous world. And if you die in that world, reality will really die. Who knows what crazy actions they will do? For the stability of real society, it is necessary to sign a confidentiality agreement. It's just that Ji Xia really didn't expect that there would be a note here. Chinese police station in another world? Isn't this even more outrageous than the First People's Hospital of Los Angeles? Chapter 4. Ji Xia is a student of Manhwa University. It is not difficult to complete the registration and obtain official status. As soon as he finished applying for the identity plate, several large companies in Wanghai City extended an olive branch to him. The salary package is generous, and you can even get a year's salary in advance. Ji Xia secretly clicked his tongue. It seemed that he still underestimated the importance that major companies attach to the second world. But it's impossible to work part-time, even in this life. After Ji Xia refused one by one, he wandered around the town. Taking into account that more people will cross in the future, the town was built on a scale of tens of thousands of people in the early stages of planning. There are still many buildings that have not been completed, and the streets are lined with piles of bricks and sand. But even so, there are still many vacancies. Newcomers who travel through time can stay for free just by showing their identity plate. When Ji Xia got her identity plate, she was assigned a small bungalow. Judging from the architectural style of the town and the equipment of the guards, it is probably in the Iron Age. Of course, there are ruthless people who use handmade clay guns and cannons, but not many people are willing to use them. It's not that earth guns are unaffordable, but that magical martial arts are more cost-effective. Normal travelers will awaken their talents after entering the second world. Most people have life talents, and only a few people can awaken combat talents and magic talents. There is no need to go into details about combat talents and magic talents. What Ji Xia registered was combat talent. Even in human form, he still has considerable power. If he deliberately conceals it, he will definitely be suspected in the future. So when Ji Xia registered, he made up a powerful fighting talent on the spot. Life talents, simply put, are enhanced life skills. For example, the yield of growing crops is higher than that of ordinary people. Forging equipment is easier to produce high-quality equipment. Sewing skills are better than others, etc. Think about it too. Without the blessing of talent, these travelers who have just crossed over will be weak. It is impossible to gain a foothold near the dangerous Lost Forest. If a mid-level monster comes out at random, they can be easily wiped out. Boom. Ji Xia, who was wandering around, suddenly heard a deafening explosion. Judging from the sound, it should be the two cannons at the entrance of the town. Then, the time travelers in the town took various weapons and ran towards the door. Goblins are attacking the main entrance. Everyone, hurry up and defend. Looking at the murderous crowd, Ji Xia looked disdainful. No, how much do they pay? Are they so desperate? 10,000 for each one. Elites will be counted separately. A gentle and jade-like voice came slowly. For those lowest-level monsters in the Lost Forest, if you kill one of them, you will be given 10,000 Chinese coins? Ji Xia's pupils suddenly widened. He rolled up his sleeves, picked up the bricks on the side of the road, and headed towards the entrance of the town fiercely. But before he could reach the door, those green-skinned, short goblins seemed to see some kind of terrifying creature. They threw away the wooden sticks in their hands and fled in all directions while making strange noises. Not only Ji Xia, but also the soldiers who were defending looked at a loss. From time to time, low-level monsters from the edge of the lost forest come out and attack the town. Just like a girl's aunt, she comes on time every 3 days. They have long been accustomed to it. But this was their first time seeing a monster escaping. Seeing that the Huaxia coins in his hand were gone, Ji Xia was depressed and threw the brick away. Ia. Looking around, a gentle and quiet face came into view. Just taking a look at it is like a refreshing breeze blowing on your face, which is soothing. At this time, the girl was looking at Ji Xia with a look of resentment. She kindly told the guy in front of her that if she killed a goblin, she would get 10,000 Chinese coins. This guy didn't care if he didn't say thank you, but he actually wanted to hit her with a brick. It's really hateful. Ji Xia smiled faintly. Are you okay? The girl's cheeks were bulging, like a little hamster. The bricks were still a little far away from the girl, and there were no signs of being hit on the girl's boots. Ji Xia breathed a sigh of relief. It seemed that he was not hit. If nothing happens, I'll go. Although the girl was very good-looking, Ji Xia felt uncomfortable being stared at by those eyes full of resentment. Stop. The girl stopped Ji Xia, who was about to slip away. Ji Xia paused and turned around with a guilty conscience. Is there anything else? Apologize to me. The girl said every word. Ji Xia's eyes narrowed. If I were in Blue Star, and you asked me to apologize, I wouldn't pick on you. But where is this? This is the Lost Forest. And he, the overlord of the Lost Forest. You want me to apologize? I'm sorry. Ji Xia bowed 90 degrees with a sincere tone. It was indeed his fault in this matter. As a civilization and progressive dragon who has a clear sense of grudges and right from wrong, why don't you just apologize? What a big deal. The girl's brows relaxed and she smiled slightly. I forgive you. It still looks good when you smile. Ji Xia whispered. What did you say? The girl's beautiful eyes became murderous again. I said you can't throw things away. As he said that, Ji Xia picked up the bricks and trotted away to put them back where they were. As expected, women are the most terrifying creatures. Ji Xia was not under so much pressure when she was fighting against the Ash Tyrant. Hey, are you talented in fighting? Just as he turned around, the girl's delicate and flawless face came into view again. Ji Xia took a deep breath. My name is not Hie. My name is Chu. Ji Xia? I understand. The girl also realized that it was not good to ask others to feed her all the time. She shook the nameplate in her hand. Li Yunjin, my name? Li Yunjin? This name seemed familiar. Ji Xia frowned. Seeing that Ji Xia did not refute, Li Yunjin was even more convinced that what he had awakened was his fighting talent. You probably haven't joined another company yet. Well, just arrived. Li Yunjin's eyes lit up. Do you want to consider following me? I will give you 100,000 a month. Sees less? 100,000? Seeing that Ji Xia didn't agree, Li Yunjin clasped his fingers and asked tentatively. Then 200,000? Ji Xia's face darkened. He pulled Li Yunjin aside and asked in a low voice. Tell me, who do you want me to kill? I'll kill him tonight. Li Yunjin touched his forehead lightly, with a look of helplessness on his face. I'm not asking you to do such a thing. I'm asking you if you want to join the Jinxiu group. Forget it. Ji Xia lost interest. After finally meeting a newcomer with fighting talent, Li Yunjin was not willing to give up. Why do you think those goblins suddenly ran away? She tried to talk about something else. Maybe some scary creature is approaching, Ji Xia said casually. Every time he passed by the goblin lair, the goblins had that kind of expression, and he was used to it. If I remember correctly, during the fight with the Lord of the Sky, he accidentally trampled the goblin leader to death. It was normal for these goblins in the Lost Forest to be afraid when they saw him. The speaker has no intention. The listener has intention. Li Yunjin stared at Ji Xia with burning eyes. At that time, it seemed that only she and Ji Xia were close. Only then did Ji Xia remember that he appeared in front of the goblins in human form. Logically speaking, they shouldn't be afraid. Could it be that he smelled his own scent? Ji Xia raised her hand and smelled it. There was no peculiar smell. Li Yunjin chuckled. You don't think you scared the goblins away, do you? Ji Xia sniffed and looked unconvinced. Maybe it's me. Chapter 5. Do you think the salary is low? No. Jinxiu is too small for your liking? No. Then what do you want? After knowing that Ji Xia had fighting talent, Li Yunjin kept chattering in his ear. I want to sleep. Do you want to sleep together? Li Yunjin was stunned for a moment, then his cheeks turned red. Bah, rogue. If that doesn't work, then I'll go to bed first. Under Li Yunjin's stunned gaze, Ji Xia closed the door with a clang. Since childhood, no boy has ever refused Li Yunjin's request. Even if Ji Xia refused again and again, his disgusted expression before closing the door was as if he was chasing away the god of plague. Li Yunjin stamped his feet heavily, his chest heaving violently. After calming down for a while, she turned around and left angrily. Just like entering the second world, the way to return to Blue Star is to sleep. If you fall asleep in the second world, you will wake up on the Blue Star. You won't feel tired after waking up, just like taking a nap. There was a lot of information from the town, and Ji Xia needed some time to digest it. At this time, the system's voice suddenly sounded in Ji Xia's ears. The system update is completed. Considering that the host is currently unable to rely on itself, long-term mission, earn it first. A small goal has been bound. Whenever the host earns 100 million, 1 billion, 10 billion Huaxia coins, he will receive corresponding rewards. Ji Xia suddenly sat up from the bed. No, man. I'm just a poor student, and you want me to earn 100 million? Why don't you let me grab it? Ji Xia touched her chin. But then again, it seems that it can indeed be snatched. So what if there are police officers in the second world? The one who robbed was the evil dragon of the Lost Forest. What does it have to do with him, Ji Xia? Tip. This task only records formal and legal income. The system neither encourages nor prohibits the host from acting recklessly. Ji Xia fell into deep thought. If there were no restrictions on formal and legal income, Ji Xia had many ways to earn hundreds of millions of Chinese coins. After adding restrictions, it becomes more difficult. Now he has more than 5 million Chinese coins in his hand. Not to mention that he knows nothing about business, even if he is a business wizard. With the market in Wanghai City almost saturated, it was impossible for him to earn 100 million in a short period of time. Whether it is traditional industries or the internet industry, the cakes have been divided up. If you enter now, you can only eat the leftovers that the big guys don't want. Moreover, the more than 5 million yuan also includes his food expenses, so the actual funds he can use will be even less. Ji Xia's frown deepened. Suddenly, a graceful figure appeared in his mind. With such a high salary, Li Yunjin must be a little rich woman. How about sacrificing your appearance to give her an advantage? No. Ji Xia quickly put an end to the idea that had just emerged. He is a progressive dragon with ideals and goals. How can he bow down for a mere 5 buckets of rice? In fact, Ji Xia was not sleepy. But as soon as I entered the classroom, sleepiness came over me unexpectedly. Especially after finding a place to sit down. My eyelids felt like they were pressed by invisible sandbags, becoming increasingly heavy. This section is an elective course. Although Ji Xia must skip elective courses, he must skip compulsory courses. But today is the first elective class of this semester, and it is still necessary to show your face in front of the teacher. The teacher hasn't come yet, and there is a lot of noise in the classroom. In a daze, the phone screen on the table lit up. It was a message from Lin Xiaozhu. Ji Xia, it's my birthday in a few days. Have you thought about what gift to give me? Ji Xia glanced at the news and smiled coldly. When he was licking Lin Xiaozhu, he would give some valuable gifts every festival. This is why Lin Xiaozhu always wants to remain friends with him. Who wouldn't want to keep a high-quality and hassle-free cash machine? During that time, there was system activation and a 100-fold rebate event. Now that the event is over, do you still want Ji Xia to give her a gift? I'll give you an egg. Ji Xia continued to take a nap. Just as I closed my eyes, the screen lit up again. It was still a message from Lin Xiaozhu. Ji Xia, this bag is so beautiful. Link, this is no longer a hint, it is an explicit statement. Ji Xia clicked on the link. It's a Chanel bag. Good guy. Nearly 30,000 Chinese coins. This price is almost enough for Ji Xia to have a breakfast. You really dare to ask for it. Ji Xia was just about to block him, but the task had been completed anyway, so there was no need to keep the toolman around. Then I thought about it, and realized that there was something wrong with doing this. It was a bit like burning bridges across rivers. He opened the software store, refer to various reviews, and compare patiently. After some careful selection, he replied to Lin Xiaozhu. Seeing that Ji Xia's news was answered so quickly, the corners of Lin Xiaozhu's mouth rose slightly. When you receive the bag, you can reluctantly have a meal with him. Immediately, her smile froze. Ji Xia, X loan, XX loan, XX loan. These software have low lending requirements and suitable interest rates. Apply yourself. Lin Xiaozhu was furious. She secretly made up her mind. If Ji Xia doesn't give her a birthday gift that satisfies her, she will never talk to Ji Xia for the rest of her life. Xiaozhu, Ji Xia also teaches in this classroom. Didn't he come to see you? Lu Mingming, who had just returned from buying breakfast, was a little curious. In the past, Lin Xiaozhu and Ji Xia had classes in the same classroom. Ji Xia will first make an affectionate confession. After being politely rejected by Lin Xiaozhu, he returned to his seat with satisfaction. Lu Mingming once wondered whether Ji Xia had Stockholm Syndrome. Looking up and looking around, Lin Xiaozhu saw Ji Xia lying down and taking a nap in the back row. Hey, your goddess seems to be looking at you. Roommate Zhang Tao bumped Ji Xia with his elbow. Ji Xia opened her eyes with difficulty and met Lin Xiaozhu's gaze. That look was as if he wanted to eat him. What a goddess, just a tool, Ji Xia muttered. Tool man? Zhang Tao didn't quite understand. However, Zhang Tao was quite pleased to see that Ji Xia was not interested in Lin Xiaozhu now. This brother of his has good looks and is a good guy. Just a dead brain. I heard that Lin Xiaozhu has confessed to her more than 90 times and still hasn't given up. Lin Xiaozhu is beautiful, but she doesn't need to hang herself from a tree. Initially, Zhang Tao and several roommates did not fail to persuade him. But Ji Xia's answer was the same every time. Brother, don't worry. I just pretended to be fascinated by her. It's all part of the plan. Okay, stop talking. I have my own rhythm. Ji Xia fell into a drowsy sleep again without looking at Lin Xiaozhu. On the contrary, Lin Xiaozhu, who was in the front row, looked back from time to time to see what Ji Xia was doing. All this was seen by Zhang Tao. It shouldn't be. This kid doesn't really have his own rhythm, does he? Chapter 6. Tell me, is Li Yunjin the first in this year's school beauty selection? Or is it Zhang Wan who comes from behind? It must be Li Yunjin. She has never lost this type of vote since she came to Nanhua University. That's not necessarily the case. It was because Xuemei Jiang was not here before, but it's hard to tell now. The golden shovel was still loading, and several boys were bored and started arguing about who was the #1 school beauty. Although Lin Xiaozhu is also a school beauty, but the reviews are not very good. Just hanging on to the boys around her and never officially announcing her relationship makes many people look down upon her. She can rank at the top of the school beauty selection list, but she has no potential to compete for the first place. A gentle-looking boy with small eyes pushed up the frame of his glasses and spoke in a serious tone. School bell is not yours even if you read it 100 times. But if you read the textbook a few times, the knowledge is yours. Sonyan, wake up. Our goal is to build China. Zhang Tao next to him looked disdainful. F***ku. You first delete the URL you asked me for yesterday before you say this. I looked at it with a learning and critical attitude. How can I generalize? The young man with small eyes turned red and argued vehemently. Damn it, didn't she hear us discussing her? Why is she coming towards us? Ignore her. I won't kill you with this cane adventure. After the game was loaded, several boys calmly started playing the game, pretending that nothing happened. Ji Xia, what a coincidence. I didn't expect you to be at Nanda too. Li Yunjin was a little happy as he walked over, his voice clear and sweet. Ji Xia, who was lying on the table and taking a nap, showed no reaction. Li Yunjin just stared at him with a faint smile, not feeling embarrassed at all. Zhang Tao couldn't stand it anymore and bumped Ji Xia with his elbow again. Ji Xia, the school beauty Li is looking for you. Then he approached Ji Xia again and asked in a low voice. When did you meet the school beauty Li? Why have I never heard you mention her? Ji Xia then opened his eyes drowsily. Looking at that exquisite and flawless face, Ji Xia's expression froze. Isn't there more than 10 million people in Wanghai City? Can we encounter this? Pretending to be dead will definitely not work at this time. Even if they don't know each other, but they are in the same classroom, they still have to say hello, right? What a coincidence. Ji Xia's voice was unclear. Li Yunjin's eyebrows widened, and his smile deepened. Classmate Ji Xia, can you add me as a WeChat friend? There are some things I want to have a good chat with you about. As soon as he finished speaking, pairs of eyes looked over. No, how could Ji Xia be so virtuous? How could he actually let Li Yunjin take the initiative to ask for his WeChat account? He has won the first place in the school beauty selection for several times in a row. There are only a handful of people in Nanhua University who don't know Li Yunjin. In addition to being incredibly beautiful, she also received various awards and certificates. Not only that, it is said that Li Yunjin's family background is also very unusual. He is picked up and dropped off by luxury cars during school and holidays. The aura around her was so dazzling. Before those admirers have the thought of pursuing, they realize that they cannot reach a high level and retreat when they realize the difficulty. She is like the bright moon in the sky, untouchable. Ji Xia also noticed that there were many unkind eyes looking at him, but he didn't care. As a ruthless person who failed to confess his love 99 times. Does he still care about this? After adding friends, Li Yunjin seemed to be in a good mood and occasionally tiptoed when walking back. Lin Xiaozhu, who was always paying attention to Ji Xia, naturally saw this scene. Her face wasn't very pretty. It was like someone had taken away something important. Xiaozhu, Ji Xia won't fall in love with him anymore, right? Lu Mingming was a little unsure. Have no idea. Lin Xiaozhu's hair suddenly exploded as if he was stressed. The page of paper in her hand was crumpled into a ball. Lu Mingming was shocked by her. I'm just saying it. Don't take it seriously. Ji Xia has failed to confess his love so many times and never gave up. How could he let you go? Lin Xiaozhu felt that what Lu Mingming said made sense, and the feeling of loss in her heart dissipated a lot. Opening WeChat, she wanted to ask Ji Xia why Li Yunjin asked him for WeChat. But when she saw several loan apps sent by Ji Xia, her anger level increased steadily. Damn Ji Xia, if you don't apologize to me, I will never talk to you again. She asked you to apologize, and then you got to know each other?
Yes.
Ji Xia nodded seriously. But you slept in the dormitory last night and didn't go out. Zhang Tao's eyes were strange. Maybe I misremembered the time. Things in the second world are still confidential, and Ji Xia doesn't want the police to come to her door. Zhang Tao didn't continue to ask. Ji Xia didn't need to lie to him about this kind of thing. The 2 elective classes passed quickly. Perhaps because he was worried about leaking the existence of the second world, Li Yunjin did not send any message during this period. The bell rang for the end of get out of class. As soon as Ji Xia stood up, Li Yunjin came over. Classmate Ji Xia, do you want to go have a meal together? The boys who were packing up their books were stunned for a moment. No, you just added WeChat before class, and now you have to go to dinner together. Is it progressing so quickly? And it was Li Yunjin who suggested it, and the girls were very reserved. Li Yunjin didn't care about those looks. She always does whatever she wants and never thinks too much about it. Ji Xia glanced at her, but did not refuse, instead turning her questioning eyes to her roommate. Zhang Tao and others stepped aside wisely. I forgot to collect my clothes. I need to go back to the dormitory first. I'm dizzy and don't want to eat today. I'm going to pick up my grandma from school. Li Yunjin smiled, revealing 2 cute little pear dimples. After Zhang Tao and the others left, Li Yunjin slowly spoke. They don't know about the second world, right? Ji Xia nodded. Yes, that's really not the right time to take them. The 2 of them walked out of the classroom with a tacit understanding, without mentioning anything about the second world. Looking at the backs of the 2 of them, Lin Xiaozhu felt filled with panic. An inexplicable feeling of loss came to my heart. He must be so close to Li Yunjin on purpose, just to p*** you off. Lu Mingming said suddenly. Lin Xiaozhu looked at her best friend, her eyes full of confusion. You are a fan of the authorities. Let me analyze it for you. Lu Mingming talked eloquently. Think about it carefully. Ji Xia has been chasing you for so long and has made no progress at all. It would be better for you to be in a hurry. Lin Xiaozhu nodded slightly. Worried? That's right. Without progress for so long, Ji Xia must want to find another way to chase you. In my opinion, he is probably retreating in order to advance, playing hard to get, and approaching Li Yunjin to make you angry. I want you to know that you actually care about him. His tricks are indeed clever, but he can't escape my sharp eyes. Lu Mingming gave Lin Xiaozhu a somewhat thoughtful look. I feel like his goal is almost achieved. Lin Xiaozhu was startled. It turned out to be like this. What a risk. He almost succeeded. No, we must not waver. Lin Xiaozhu, you must remember your pursuit. Her gaze became determined again. Chapter 7. Li Yunjin wore a long skirt with a waist. The long skirt fits the girl's body tightly, vividly depicting her youthful and plump curves. The long hair like a waterfall is spread over the shoulders, and a few strands of hair fall in the wind on the chest, intertwined with the lace, adding a bit of charm. Ji Xia's heartbeat suddenly accelerated, and she couldn't help but take a few more glances. How do you say that sentence? When a woman lowers her head and cannot see her toes, she is already extremely beautiful in the world. Li Yunjin noticed Ji Xia's malicious eyes. He crossed his hands calmly and covered his chest to cover his beautiful curves. Ji Xia didn't panic at all after her little thoughts were revealed. No, even a gentleman should be on guard, right? The 2 soon arrived at a high-end restaurant. Ji Xia took the menu and confirmed it again. As promised beforehand, I have a big appetite. Are you sure you want this meal? Of course. I invited you here. If I still ask you to treat me, wouldn't it make me look stingy? Li Yunjin looked indifferent. Isn't it just one meal? As much as you can eat. Ji Xia called the waiter and pointed to several vegetarian dishes. This and this? Li Yunjin frowned. Didn't you say you have a big appetite? Can you eat enough? Although it's my treat, don't worry about it. I can still afford the money. Ji Xia closed the menu without changing his face. What I'm saying is that you don't want these dishes, but all the other dishes will be served. Li Yunjin. If it's just 2 people, you don't actually need to order so many dishes, the waiter said respectfully. No, just serve as he said. Li Yunjin motioned to the waiter to do as he was told. It is said that after awakening the talent, the real world will also be affected in some way. Such a large appetite just proves that he has awakened a talent of strength or physical fitness. Li Yunjin's beautiful eyes bloomed with a different look. Ji Xia shrugged innocently. I told you, I have a big appetite, and I don't intend to ask you to invite me. He still ordered in a conservative way. In fact, the food he ordered was just enough to fill his stomach. That's not what I meant. Li Yunjin asked in a low voice. What you awakened is the power talent, right? Right. Ji Xia said casually. It's true that he was one of the first-time travelers. However, it was not until yesterday that he had any contact with other time travelers. I really don't understand the talent system. Whatever you say it is, then it is what it is. Li Yunjin did not doubt it. Goblins invaded the town yesterday, and Ji Xia dared to attack with a brick. Only newcomers who have awakened their fighting talents are so confident. Ji Xia lazily leaned on the seat. When you ask me out this time, you shouldn't ask me to join Ji Xia, right? I am a person who is used to being idle, and I don't like to be restrained. Li Yunjin shook his head. It's not true, but if you want to join Ji Xia, I still welcome you. It will take some time to serve. Ji Xia tapped the table with her index finger and said straight to the point. Tell me, what do you want to see me for? I want to ask you for a favor. Li Yunjin didn't like to beat around the bush. It is said that there is an abandoned mine in the southwest of the town. Tonight, I plan to take people to take a look, but there are not enough manpower. The Ji Xia group only learned of the existence of the second world recently. In the second world, Ji Xia group is far inferior to other large companies in Wanghai City in terms of both the number of people and the quality of its personnel. One step is slow, each step is slow. If Ji Xia wants to get a share of the second world in the future, it must take some risks now. For example, take down the abandoned mine. Small towns are often attacked by monsters, let alone leaving the town to find mines. The risk is high, but Li Yunjin must do it. With just the few people she has, it is estimated that the whole army will be wiped out within a few kilometers of the town. She needed help, so she thought of Ji Xia. It's true that Ji Xia is a newcomer, but he is a talented person in combat, and his role is far beyond what others can match. My appearance fee is very expensive, and one meal is far from enough. Ji Xia took the juice from the waiter and did not continue. This is 1 million. The password is 68. Li Yunjin took out a bank card and pushed it in front of Ji Xia. The price is 1 million. She is indeed a rich little woman. Ji Xia took the bank card and put it into his pocket, thus agreeing to the transaction. Aren't you afraid that I'll take the money and default on your debt? Li Yunjin held her chin with one hand. Under the light, her slender eyebrows reflected a beautiful silhouette on her face. You won't. Oh. Ji Xia raised the corner of her mouth. How do you know I can't? Intuition. My intuition is always very accurate. Then you have misjudged the person. I will take the money and run away tonight. Flame steak, pan-fried abalone, golden soup shark's fin. Courses of expensive delicacies were brought to the table by the waiters. Ji Xia turned into a ruthless rice-drying machine, stuffing delicacies into his mouth. Most of these dishes have one characteristic. Plate a large amount, spread the sauce, and put grass on it. The speed of serving food could not keep up with Ji Xia's eating speed. He had some regrets. If I had known earlier, I shouldn't have come to this crappy place. It's not even enough to fill the gap between your teeth. Yunjin, what a coincidence. You are eating here too? A tall, dark-skinned young man walked over and greeted him warmly. Li Yunjin raised his head. A touch of frost appeared on his face. Yunjin, you called me that too? The visitor is Zhou Kuan, a student from the Physical Education Department of Nanhua University. He is also one of Li Yunjin's suitors, and his family is quite powerful. Zhou Kuan walked to Li Yunjin and was about to sit down when he saw Ji Xia, who was feasting. His face suddenly darkened. I finally met the goddess by chance, but ended up encountering such a disappointing thing. Suppressing his anger, Zhou Kuan patted the table. Brother, you go eat next to me. I have something to say to Yunjin. Ji Xia turned a deaf ear and poured a plate of fried lamb kidneys into his mouth. Zhou Kuan, how many times have I said that there is no chance for us? Li Yunjin showed no mercy. Also, Ji Xia is my friend. Please speak politely. Seeing the goddess defending Ji Xia like this, Zhou Kuan became angry. You didn't hear what I said, did you? He snatched half of the roasted lamb leg from Ji Xia's hand and threw it into the trash can. What habits would a dragon develop after being hungry for 8 meals for 3 days? Yes, that is food protection. Ji Xia had many conflicts with super-level monsters, all because of food. The black scales on the back of the hand were looming, and his eyes were instantly filled with a violent look. Ji Xia grabbed Zhou Kuan's collar with one hand and threw him into the air. Zhou Kuan flew out like a kite with its string cut off, knocking over several solid wood tables and chairs along the way. Amidst the roar, sawdust flew, and the scene was in a mess. Ji Xia followed closely and stepped heavily on Zhou Kuan's chest. He squatted down half-crouched, his 5 fingers turned into sharp claws made of iron, and firmly strangled Zhou Kuan's neck. Ji Xia's voice became deep and hoarse at this moment. What? You want to steal my food? Chapter 8. Zhou Kuan's face turned red. A look of pain and fear mingled on his face. He struggled desperately, pulling at Ji Xia's wrist with both hands. But the palm covered with black scales was as motionless as a rock. The surrounding guests were stunned by the sudden change. The once bustling restaurant fell into dead silence. Only Zhou Kuan's painful moans echoed in the restaurant. Ji Xia, this is Wanghai City. Li Yunjin came over and patted his shoulder gently with a soft voice. The scales faded away quietly, and the violence in his eyes also disappeared. Human reason gradually takes over. Looking at Zhou Kuan, whose eyes were about to pop out of his feet, and who was obviously about to die, Ji Xia slowly let go of his palms. He slapped Zhou Kuan's purple face, leaned over, and whispered, You should be grateful that this is a society governed by the rule of law. Otherwise, you would be a dead man now. Ji Xia raised his foot and kicked Zhou Kuan aside with disgust. Click. Zhou Kuan was kicked away and curled up in a ball, wailing in pain. Ji Xia was slightly startled. She seemed to hear the sound of bone cracking just now. Well, I must have heard wrong. He is just a weak college student. How can he be so strong? It was probably the sound of a table leg breaking, and he misunderstood. Yes, that's definitely the case. And this Zhou Kuan seems to be a sports student. The physique of sports students is different from that of ordinary people, even if their ribs are really broken. After a little sedimentation, it can be restored to its original state. You said he threw you more than 10 meters away with one hand, and then lightly kicked you and broke 3 of your ribs? That's right. Zhou Kuan nodded affirmatively. The middle-aged policeman who was taking notes had black lines all over his head, and he was somewhat doubting whether this stupid guy had something wrong with his head. Just then, a young policeman walked over in a hurry. He whispered something into the ear of the policeman in charge of taking notes. The middle-aged policeman's expression changed. He frowned first, then nodded. You can go. Ji Xia raised his head and found that the middle-aged policeman was talking to him. He didn't ask any more questions, stood up and walked out of the interrogation room. Hey, how can we let him go? Hiss. Zhou Kuan, who was covered in bandages, stood up and tried to stop him, but the wound was torn and he grimaced in pain. Don't ask so many questions and keep taking notes. The middle-aged policeman glared at him fiercely. It is not good for you to provoke anyone. Provoke those people. As long as those people fall asleep, they may face a life or death crisis. Under long-term mental stress, many people's mental state has long been problematic. It's just a beating. You can just have some fun. To put it simply, Ji Xia now holds a fool's card just like the subway judge. Just don't do anything too outrageous. As soon as we walked out of the police station, the sky turned gloomy. A cool breeze blew by, and a steady drizzle fell on Ji Xia's head. He shrank his neck, feeling a little cold. It seems that after turning into a dragon, he is very afraid of the cold. Here, a familiar figure came over. In the light rain, Li Yunjin handed over an umbrella. Thank you. Ji Xia took the umbrella. Did you help me pack it? Li Yunjin was waiting outside, which already explained a lot of problems. Not really. I just asked the city bureau to synchronize your information as soon as possible. Even if I don't help, you will be able to come out soon. And it's me who should say thank you. Zhou Kuan came to see me. Thank you for helping me out. In the rain curtain, Li Yunjin's figure unconsciously leaned towards Ji Xia. The drizzle mixed with the refreshing fragrance floated over. Ji Xia's eyes lit up. Sure enough, beautiful girls are all fragrant. Unknowingly, the The two of them had reached the school gate. A Mercedes-Benz S600 has been waiting here for a long time. Mississippi. The burly driver and bodyguard walked over with a respectful tone. Li Yunjin pursed his lips, as if he wanted to say something. Go back, see you tonight. Ji Xia spoke first. Li Yunjin smiled. Okay, see you in the evening. The engine roared and the luxury car gradually moved away. Ji Xia stood there, staring at the palm with black scales before, and was lost in thought for a long time. Those were dragon scales. He knew it very well. Before the system was activated, his body had never experienced such changes. Is this a hidden reward? Ji Xia smiled lightly. He breathed a long sigh of relief and turned around leisurely. Now that you have the chance, let's go to the top of the mountain and have a look. Don't look. It's not a place for newcomers like you to go outside. In the second world, a middle-aged man wearing leather armor was teaching the newcomer in front of him. He took out a wooden spear and handed it to the newcomer. Go to the school grounds to practice how to use the spear. When you can use it skillfully, I will take you outside the town. Ji Xia smiled. For others, this place may be full of dangers. But for him, he only needs to consider how to eat. It's not the appointed time yet. Ji Xia planned to visit the abandoned mine in advance. According to the location described by Li Yunjin, the mine is located on the outskirts of the Lost Forest. The danger factor in the periphery is very low, and there are usually only some mid to low-level monsters, such as goblins, cat demons, lizardmen, etc. Of course, the risk factor is low for Ji Xia. He didn't know what the strength of Jinxia's people was. Ji Xia quickened his pace. After leaving the town for more than 10 kilometers and identifying other people around, the human form was released. A giant dragon tens of meters high suddenly appeared outside the Lost Forest. The black dragon walked toward the southwest step by step. Smoke and dust were everywhere along the way, and birds and animals were frightened. Even these low-level monsters can't understand it. Why does the Overlord who only operates in the core area of the Lost Forest suddenly appear here? However, now is not the time to think about those things. It is important to seize the time and escape. If they were too close, Ji Xia's dragon power alone would be enough to kill them. It didn't take long for him to find the abandoned mine that Li Yunjin had mentioned. Ji Xia frowned. There are several broken tents near the mine. Someone has already arrived first. Judging from the state of the bonfire, the group was still living here a few days ago. Wrong. Ji Xia stared at the entrance of the mine. There were powerful life fluctuations coming from there. Judging from the aura, there is at least one high-level magical beast inside. Why do high-level monsters appear outside the forest? He stepped heavily on the ground, causing the ground to shake violently. Before the abandoned mine collapsed, a giant wolf ran out with a group of wind wolves. Without saying a word, the giant wolf activated the cyan wind element magic and quickly fled the scene with its tail between its legs. The other storm wolves are the same. Ji Xia, he knew that giant wolf, Wolf King Griffin, considered his former neighbor. But this neighbor is not a pleasant one. In order to reduce energy consumption, Ji Xia spends most of his time in the dragon's nest. But when Wolf King Griffin had something to do, he would take a group of his younger brothers and cry like ghosts and howl like wolves on the nearby hills, seriously affecting Ji Xia's rest. In the end, Ji Xia couldn't bear it anymore and planned to beat it severely. However, Griffin was proficient in wind magic and his speed was so fast that Ji Xia couldn't catch up, so he had no choice but to let it go. I didn't expect to encounter it here. It's really an enemy on a narrow road. Chapter 9. Griffin must have been terrified. Otherwise, how could a majestic 7th-level monster hide in the outskirts of the forest and survive? Ji Xia looked at the broken weapons on the ground and fell into deep thought. As far as he knew, ordinary people in the second world were not allowed to enter the Lost Forest. Only a small number of hunters, mercenary groups, and troops are eligible to enter the Lost Forest. Hunters usually only hunt near their residences and will not spend the night in the Lost Forest. The weapons of the mercenary group and the army will not be so bad. So the identity of these people is self-evident. Like him, from China, judging from the chaotic footprints on the ground, they should have been attacked by the storm wolf. The location of the mine was leaked, which meant that the entire group was not wiped out. Jinxiu, who was eager to develop, happened to learn the location of the mine at this time. Ji Xia smiled coldly. It seems that someone wants to borrow a knife to kill someone. Thanks to me, otherwise Jinxiu would not be destroyed here. No, I have to ask the little rich woman to add more money later. Miss, has the help you asked for not arrived yet? I think he definitely doesn't plan to come, so why don't we wait? I think Lao Feng is right. He is a newcomer, and he will not have much effect even if he comes. At the entrance of the town, a group of people surrounded Li Yunjin like stars over the moon. They waited here for more than half an hour, a little impatient. Wait a little longer, he will come. Li Yunjin's tone was very determined. Li Yunjin has said so, and it's hard for others to say anything else. However, the low voices of complaint still persisted. I'm sorry, something delayed me a little bit. Ji Xia walked over as if nothing had happened. You're a newbie, but you have a lot of arrogance. Lao Feng said his dissatisfaction was written directly on his face. Old Feng, please stop saying a few words. Li Yunjin frowned. Ji Xia glanced at Li Yunjin and said, You are quite a nice person. Old Feng snorted coldly and stepped aside. There is a smell of decay in the air. That is the unique musty smell of dead branches and leaves in a damp environment. I can't say it tastes very good, but it's not pungent. The group of people stepped on the thick layer of fallen leaves, making a rustling sound. Wearing simple armor and holding weapons in their hands, they split the obstructing shrubs and branches and moved forward with difficulty. This is the Lost Forest, not a small town, and you may be attacked by monsters at any time. No one spoke, and everyone's face was full of vigilance. Ji Xia held a piece of dogtail grass in his mouth, just like outing, without any awareness of being in danger. Actually, what he wanted to say was that all the monsters within dozens of miles nearby were scared away by the dragon's power, and there was absolutely no need for this. But after thinking about it, I still held it back. Li Yunjin walked in the middle of the team. Although she tried her best to hide it, Ji Xia could still see the tension on her fair face. There is something to say. When you meet a girl, look into her eyes first. If you notice she's not looking at you, look at her legs. Straight and round, elegant and slender. Nice legs. It would be a shame not to pedal 3 wheels. As if aware of the gaze behind him, Li Yunjin turned around and met Ji Xia's gaze. She asked softly, Does it look good? Ji Xia coughed lightly. What are you talking about? I'm a gentleman who doesn't look sideways, so I don't understand. Li Yunjin slowed down until he was walking side by side with Ji Xia. You don't seem afraid? Why be afraid? Joke? He is the leader of the Lost Forest. What is there to be afraid of in his own home? So, you are great? I'm super powerful. Ji Xia looked arrogant. The corners of Li Yunjin's mouth rose slightly, and most of the tension in the Forest of Loss dissipated at this moment. Then you have to protect me. It should be, Ji Xia assured, patting her chest. The two of them just chatted wordlessly. I don't feel like you are a newcomer at all, Li Yunjin said seriously. No newcomer is nervous when leaving a small town for the first time. Really? Maybe I'm braver. Ji Xia replied casually. Then, he tried to change the topic. Abandoned mines are important to Jinxiu? Speaking of Jinxiu, Li Yunjin's eyebrows were tinged with sadness. She nodded heavily. It's very important. Today's splendid city is only beautiful on the surface, but in fact people have long been in panic. The main business has shrunk significantly, the investment projects have disappeared, and the funds have not been withdrawn. The company's account has long been out of money, and it relies entirely on bank loans to pay employees' salaries. That bank loan is due soon. If it is not repaid, Fairview will declare bankruptcy. These are not trade secrets. If you carefully check Jinxiu's financial reports, you can find the clues. Ji Xia frowned. This doesn't seem to have much to do with the abandoned mine, does it? Of course. Li Yunjin pointed to the spear in Old Feng's hand and asked, How much do you think this spear can be sold for in real life? Travelers in the second world have no legal currency. When trading, either barter or pay in real time with Chinese coins. Ji Xia knew this. 100. Looking at the simple spear, Ji Xia reported the price in his mind. Li Yunjin shook his head. 300. Li Yunjin shook his head again. How much is that? 3,000. Ji Xia took a breath of cold air. How many? 3,000? Just a broken wooden stick with a bit of iron. How dare you sell it for 3,000? Why don't you go and grab it? Is it unbelievable? But this is the price on the market, and even supply exceeds demand, Li Yunjin said calmly. The town is in its infancy and is short of all kinds of materials, especially ore. If Jinxiu can own a mine, it will make a lot of money every day, and it will also attract investment from other companies. The broken capital chain can be reconnected. When the investment funds come back, Jinxiu will not only be able to escape the bankruptcy crisis, but also reach a higher level. Ji Xia didn't listen at all to what he said next. He only heard that a broken spear could be sold for 3,000. Don't think that there are very few travelers, and the market is small. There are more than 12 million people in Wanghai City, and currently there are nearly 10,000 people traveling through it. According to this ratio, looking at the whole of China, the number of travelers can reach 1 million, and the number keeps increasing. A self-defense weapon like a spear is estimated to be available to everyone. After wearing it out, I will continue to buy it. This is not a small market. It is obviously a market worth hundreds of billions. Very good. You can earn small goals from this aspect and complete system tasks. Ji Xia, are you listening? Seeing that Ji Xia ignored her, Li Yunjin was a little dissatisfied and waved her little hand in front of him. It's indeed a good idea. If the mine is found, Jinxiu's crisis may be solved. Ji Xia nodded in praise. Of course. Li Yunjin was quite proud. This was a method she came up with after thinking hard for a long time. If Jinxiu hadn't started late in the second world and didn't have enough manpower, she would have had better ideas. And it's quite a coincidence that as soon as you thought of this method, you immediately learned the location of an abandoned mine, Ji Xia said coldly. Chapter 10. Li Yunjin was stunned. What a coincidence. Just a few days ago, she proposed the idea of finding mines and attracting investment in a meeting. As a result, someone immediately provided her with the location of the abandoned mine. Jinxiu's crisis was imminent, and she didn't think much about it at the time. She just felt that God was blessing Jinxiu. Now that I think about it, there is indeed something wrong. You mean, Miss, it's too dangerous here. You can chat slowly when you find the mine. Hurry up and get on your way. Lao Feng urged from the side. Ji Xia glanced at old Feng and said with a smile, Jinxiu employees, do you usually talk to you like this? Li Yunjin took a deep look at Lao Feng. Lao Feng is an old employee of Jinxiu. He is usually honest, almost transparent. Not to mention contradicting the boss. I can't even say a few words to my colleagues. But today, he obviously talked a lot. Old Feng, you found out the location of the abandoned mine, right? Yes, it's me. The information is absolutely reliable. Lao Feng assured him, patting his chest. Li Yunjin signaled the team to stop. I'm a little tired after walking for so long. I plan to take a rest here. How about you go explore the road ahead? Haha. Old Feng laughed dryly. Miss, are you kidding me? We'll be there in another 2 kilometers. It won't be too late to rest then. I'm not kidding. Li Yunjin found a tree stump and sat down. Since you're not tired, let's explore the way first. I'll bring someone to follow you soon. Old Feng's expression was a little embarrassed. Since Miss wants to rest, then let's rest. He found a clean area and sat down. I asked you to explore the way ahead, didn't you hear? As soon as he finished speaking, 2 Jinxiu Group employees stepped forward and picked up Old Feng. Old Feng, how is Jinxiu treating you? It's very good. They even increased my salary several times recently. Lao Feng's tone was stammering, and anyone could hear his guilty conscience. Then why did you betray Jinxiu? Li Yunjin's eyes were no longer as soft as before, but became extremely sharp. I didn't. If not, go ahead and explore the way. Old Feng's face instantly darkened. The mine is right in front. Let's go. Why don't you leave? He struggled to free himself. Since you have guessed it, I won't act in this play. Yes, I am indeed an undercover agent. Then, he took out a glass bottle and made an evil sound. You don't dare to continue walking, you're afraid of death, right? It's okay, you'll die if you don't leave. The cork was opened, and a strange fragrance filled the air. Li Yunjin and others' expressions changed. This smell was familiar to them. It was a trapping incense that was said to be able to attract all mid to low-level monsters within several kilometers. The Aborigines of the Second World usually used this kind of alchemy prop when hunting. Unexpectedly, the people behind the scenes would even hand over such precious props to Lao Feng. It seemed that they were planning to put Jinxiu to death. It will definitely be too late to escape, but you will die faster. A group of people gathered together and looked around warily. But after a while, there was no movement around. Lao Feng inverted the glass bottle and dripped the remaining liquid on the ground. He looked bewildered. How could this happen? Where is the monster? Grandma, you guys are playing tricks on me, right? Ji Xia wanted to laugh. Not to mention a few kilometers, there wasn't even a single monster around for more than 10 kilometers. After not seeing the monster attack for a long time, Li Yunjin and others suddenly breathed a sigh of relief. Suddenly, Ji Xia's expression suddenly changed. He grabbed Li Yunjin's hand. Escape. Li Yunjin was obviously shocked by this sudden turn of events, but she still let Ji Xia grab her hand and run away. Boom! The deafening sound was like thunder rolling past, and the nearby towering ancient trees were instantly swallowed up by raging flames. The blazing high temperature swept over instantly, and the air seemed to be ignited. At the end of the line of sight, a giant figure about 50 meters tall and surrounded by blazing flames was approaching step by step. Ji Xia had a headache. Why was that guy here? The visitor was none other than one of Ji Xia's mortal enemies, the super-level monster Ash Tyrant. Trapping incense can only attract some low-intelligence monsters. Warcraft with a little bit of intelligence will not be affected by incense. Not to mention a monster of the level of the Ash Tyrant. The forest turned into a sea of fire in an instant, and the flames were raging. Countless thick tree trunks collapsed in the heat wave, almost swallowing them both. Ji Xia could clearly feel that the girl's palms were already covered in cold sweat. Her delicate face also turned red, not sure if it was because of fear or the high temperature. Don't be afraid, it's okay. Ji Xia smiled. The girl did not respond, but held Ji Xia's hand tighter, as if it was her only support at the moment. He was stunned for a moment and comforted softly. I promised to protect you. Look, if he stops, we will definitely be able to escape. Before Ji Xia finished speaking, the flaming sword in Ash Tyrant's hand waved in the air. A blazing sword energy tore through the sky, passed over his head, and built a wall of flames stretching several kilometers in front of him. Ji Xia's expression froze. Grass mud horse. Can't afford it? For some reason, Li Yunjin was unexpectedly calm, tilted his head and asked softly, Are we going to die here? Ji Xia took a step forward, protecting her behind him, and spoke calmly. As long as I'm here, it won't happen. Li Yunjin couldn't help but look up. The jumping firelight outlined a resolute outline on Ji Xia's delicate profile. A sense of security that he had never felt before suddenly entered Li Yunjin's heart. Suddenly, her vision went dark, and her body fell backwards softly. Ji Xia quickly caught her and looked at her palm again. She shouldn't have used too much force, right? The human form is certainly no match for the Ash Tyrant. He had no choice but to take Li Yunjin offline. Ji Xia raised his head and looked directly at the Ash's Tyrant not far away, his eyes full of provocation and anger. I've already told you, I don't know if it's your home and it's troublesome to find trouble every day. Does it bother you? Li Yunjin woke up from the bedroom and looked around blankly. It took a while to realize that this was her bedroom. She tried her best to calm down her chaotic mind and tried to fall asleep again. However, the more we long for sleep, the more conscious we become. After several attempts to fall asleep to no avail, she wore plain pajamas, threw on a coat, and ran outside. Uncle Wu, take me to school. The headlights of the Mercedes-Benz S600 pierced the curtain of darkness and stopped steadily in front of the gate of the boys' dormitory. Li Yunjin jumped out of the car wearing only a pair of cotton slippers and ran towards the dormitory building regardless of her image. A slipper accidentally flew off her foot, but she had no time to care about it at the moment, letting her soles be exposed to the cold wind of the autumn night. Which dormitory is Ji Xia from the Department of Management in? I have something urgent to do with him. Chapter 11. The dormitory warden just wanted to scold Li Yunjin for staying up late at night and why he came to the boys' dormitory. But after seeing the burly and fierce bodyguard behind her, she swallowed the words as she spoke. Quickly coming back to his senses, the dormitory manager took out the accommodation registration book from the drawer and rummaged through it quickly. Ji Xia from the Department of Management lives on 3-26. Before the dormitory manager could finish speaking, Li Yunjin turned around and ran upstairs. The girl's eager footsteps echoed in the quiet dormitory building. When she came to the door of dormitory 3-26, she took a deep breath, adjusted her mood, and then knocked gently. Who is it? A slightly lazy male voice came from inside the room. The door slowly opened, and a sleepy Ji Xia stood at the door. Tears blurred his vision. Li Yunjin blinked hard, trying to see the familiar face clearly. It's him, yes. Ji Xia. She whispered his name, her voice trembling so much that it was almost unrecognizable. Hey, don't cry. Ji Xia suddenly lost all sleepiness. It's midnight now. It may be a little late for others, but for college students, the nightlife has just begun. If anyone else saw Li Yunjin crying in front of his dormitory door in the middle of the night, who knows how outrageous the rumors will get out. Ji Xia, who was knocking on the door just now? Zhang Tao, who was staying up late, asked casually. Li Yunjin. Oh, Li Yunjin. Zhang Tao continued to play games, etc. Who are you talking about? Li Yunjin? Zhang Tao took off his headphones and looked around. Outside the door, a graceful figure stands like a willow, graceful and graceful. Good evening, Zhang Tao stammered as he greeted. Is there anything you want to do to find Ji Xia so late? Come and play games with me. Ji Xia took over. The second world can barely be considered a 100% realistic game, right? It's just that the way to go online and offline is a bit special. Playing games? Come to play games with you so late? And it's a game that can only be played in person? Is this game serious? Several roommates turned their heads and their eyes became strange. Especially Zhang Tao. He felt that his CPU was about to burn out. Make friends in the morning, have dinner together at noon, and prepare for a home run at night? No. Did your relationship progress so quickly? The girlfriend he has been dating for several months is still in the stage of holding hands. Ji Xia, you deserve to die. Zhang Tao's eyes were filled with resentment. Li Yunjin stopped talking. She had a lot to say and a lot to ask. But this is not the place to talk. Seeing her concerns, Ji Xia put on her coat and prepared to go out. His eyes swept over the ground. He frowned, turned around and took out a pair of Squirtle slippers from the shoe cabinet. Lift your feet. Li Yunjin was slightly startled and blushed on his face. Immediately, he held Ji Xia's shoulders and gently raised his feet. The girl's feet are white and delicate, like a pair of carefully carved mutton fat jade, crystal clear and glowing with soft luster. The nails are neatly trimmed and as smooth as mother of pearl. Confirmed, it's Yuzu. Ji Xia swallowed, forced herself to calm down, and put on Squirtle slippers for the girl. Seeing that Ji Xia didn't get up for a long time, the girl asked timidly, "Want the other foot too? If you want Squirtle on one foot and Pikachu on the other, then I can only say that you have a unique understanding of dressing." She had no choice but to lift her other foot and let Ji Xia take off the Pikachu slipper. Okay. Ji Xia stood up slowly. The size is a bit too big, so be careful when walking. I know. The girl's excitement was beyond words, and she paced back and forth in the corridor with her ill-fitting slippers. Outside the dormitory building, the moon is hanging high. The two walked side by side on the cobblestone path, walking slowly. The moonlight shines on the girl's beautiful face, adding even more softness. As the breeze blows gently, the hair occasionally brushes against the face. How did we survive? Li Yunjin broke the silence by tucking her hair behind her ears. Do you know the Pythagorean principle? Underscore? It has nothing to do with this. Anyway, we survived. Everyone has their own secret. Li Yunjin did not continue to ask. Thanks. Little things. You are my financial sponsor, little rich woman. So of course you have to do things after receiving the money. Is it just because of this? Her tone was a little low. By the way, I want to see that abandoned mine. The ore in it has been mined, and there is no value for further development. Ji Xia didn't know how to answer, so he changed the topic. Well, I guessed it. Since Lao Feng is an undercover agent, there must be something wrong with the information he provided. Li Yunjin had long given up hope in the mine. Then what are your plans next? No. The girl blinked her eyes and shook her head. Those shareholders are not in a hurry, so why should I be in a hurry? If Jinxiu really goes bankrupt, I will no longer be the eldest lady. Ji Xia smiled softly. You are quite optimistic. Of course. I have saved a lot of personal money over the years. One day, I will leave Wanghai City and find a place with beautiful scenery to open a small B&B. Then what? We'll think about the future later. The two of them were like long-lost old friends, chatting about the future and ideals under the moonlight. Miss, it's getting late. The driver who had been following behind reminded him. Hearing this, Ji Xia looked at the time and saw that it was already 1:30 in the morning. Go back early. We have classes tomorrow. Okay. Although she was a little reluctant, she nodded obediently. The girl dragged her Squirtle slippers that did not fit the size and walked unsteadily towards the door. On the way, he turned around frequently and waved to Ji Xia. With the engine roaring, the luxury car slowly drove away from the gate. Ji Xia watched the luxury car drive away until the light and shadow disappeared. Then he turned back to the dormitory. Dee. The phone screen lights up. It's news from the traveling group. Li Yunjin just dragged him into a QQ group called Wanghai City Crossing Group 2. In terms of group functions, QQ is far stronger than WeChat. With functions such as file transfer and group file sharing, QQ is far easier to use than other social software. Damn it. There was a battle with super-level monsters in the southwest of the town just now. Real or false? Aren't super-level monsters only active in the core area? I saw it too. It seemed like there was a conflict between a giant dragon and a flaming giant, and the nearby forest was on fire. Isn't it? I can't even defeat the second-level monsters now. Are you telling me that the final boss will block the door of the novice village? The indigenous people of the second world refer to level 1 to level 3 monsters as low-level monsters. Level 4 to 6 monsters are mid-level monsters. Level 7 to 9 are high-level monsters. Level 9 and above are collectively called super-level monsters. Super-level monsters have the ability to destroy nations. Even the powerful countries in the second world are not willing to provoke existences of this level. For time travelers, the appearance of a super-level monster near a small town is definitely a disaster. Chapter 12. I think it's almost impossible to stay in this town. How about going to the town built in Ji Xia city next door? Is there anyone there? A group of friends suggested it. That's a good idea, but I haven't left the town yet. Will I die on the road? No matter. It's better than waiting to die here. Purchase a cold weapon. The price is negotiable. After a while, many people responded to the old man's suggestion. To go to the traveler town in Ji Xia city next door, you need to pass through a section of forest. The forest is full of dangers, and there are a large number of monsters infested. For life safety, adequate preparations must be made. There are people buying weapons and equipment in the group one after another. In just a few hours, the price of weapons and equipment increased by at least 30%. Ji Xia's eyes widened as she peeked at the screen. I'm just going to make an appointment with Hui Jin, and you guys are going to move? And the rate of increase in weapons and equipment is a bit exaggerated. Doesn't it mean that he can control the market in the second world? If the money is gone, you can make more, but if your conscience is gone, you can make more. Ji Xia came up with a bold idea. He quickly opened the group chat and found the group manager with the note, selling equipment and props. Boss, how do you sell the equipment? The other party responded quickly, and a string of equipment quotations popped up like a barrage of bullets. Spear 4,500, iron sword 9,000, steel knife 12,000, bow and arrow. Ji Xia glanced at the price and cursed inwardly. Profiteer. The market outside only rose by 30%, but here it suddenly rose by 50%. Boss, why is your place so much more expensive than the market price? What do you know? We have after-sales service here, and the transaction is guaranteed by the group owner. Of course it is more expensive than outside. Can it be cheaper? No. If you want to buy something cheap, just go to the group to collect it. If you get cheated then, don't blame me for not reminding you. The other party has an attitude of whether he wants to buy or not. May I ask, how does the transaction process go? Simple. You transfer the money to the group leader, and I will hand over the equipment to you in front of the group leader. After inspecting the goods, the group owner deducts the commission and then transfers the money to me. Ji Xia was thoughtful and continued to ask, can I only trade in Hie city town? What if I am in Ji Xia town? We don't sell it in Ji Xia. The shipping fee is higher than the selling price, and I still make a lot of money. That's it. Does the boss have the contact information of the merchants in Ji Xia city? I'm in Ji Xia city now and plan to buy a batch of equipment. The profiteer was a little impatient and threw him a group business card. Ji Xia Crossing Group. Question for joining the group. Your current location? The Lost Forest. Verification passed. Hey, there's a new guy here again. Newcomers take photos and receive red envelopes. Is there any offline double row? I was born with no gag reflex. Even in the early morning, the group of time travelers was still very lively. Ignoring the noise in the group, Ji Xia found the equipment merchant in Ji Xia city. Boss, how do you sell this equipment? Spears cost 3,300, daggers cost 3,500, iron swords cost 6,000, bows and arrows are sold out and are currently unavailable. The time traveler town in Ji Xia city was not affected by the battle between super-level monsters. Although there is a premium here for merchants, it is much cheaper than in Hie city. What about the wholesale price? No wholesale price. The merchants in Ji Xia city have a tough attitude, just like the merchants in Hie city. It seems that they are not worried about sales, otherwise they would not dare to talk to the sellers like this. How many goods do you have now? I want them all. Wait a minute, let me check the inventory. The other party was obviously moved by this big order, and his tone became enthusiastic. 172 spears, 68 daggers, 97 iron swords, iron axes. The total is 2.737 million. I'll give you a zero. It's 2.7 million. Brother, do you really plan to take them all? Well, let's make an appointment for a transaction. Okay, come on, brother. I'll contact the group leader. Hie Town and Ji Xia Town are more than 100 miles apart in the second world. Ordinary through hikers may need to walk for several days. If you encounter danger, it may take longer, and you may even be buried in the belly of a monster. But for Ji Xia in the form of a giant dragon, It didn't take much time at all. As for the danger, isn't that something Warcraft should consider along the way? Official identity plates are universally accepted everywhere. After showing his nameplate, he entered Jiashi town smoothly. The merchants in Jia City waited for a long time. When he found out that the visitor was so young, he was slightly startled. He glanced at the group leader standing aside as a guarantor. The group leader nodded. The businessman then greeted him with a smile. Are you Boss Ji? My surname is Liu, an equipment merchant from Jia City. Ji Xia smiled, stretched out his hand and shook hands with Boss Liu. Boss Liu, nice to meet you. Boss Ji, all the equipment you want is here. Boss Liu waved, and a cart loaded with various cold weapons was pushed out by two young men. The equipment was brand new and sharp, obviously built recently. No problem. After inspecting the goods, Ji Xia nodded with satisfaction. Boss Liu smiled even more. He thought it would take a long time to argue, but he didn't expect the buyer to be so forthcoming. Then the payment. Mr. Chun, you can send the money to Boss Liu. Before entering the second world, Ji Xia transferred 2.7 million to the group owner's account. The group leaders of the time-traveling group all have official backgrounds and official endorsements, so there is no need to worry about the group leaders running away. Boss Ji, do you want me to send 2 people to help you deliver the goods? No need. Ji Xia waved her hand. Boss, why is it you again? The equipment merchant in Hie City was a little impatient. I'm not buying equipment this time. I'm selling equipment. Do you want to take it? Aren't you in Jia City? Ji Xia thought for a while and typed a reply. Actually, my friend is in Jia City. He bought a batch of equipment from Jia City. I asked him about the market situation of Hie. In front of the computer screen, Shun Yuanshan took a deep breath of cigarette. The appearance of super-level monsters near the town has caused panic among the people in Hie town and greatly increased the demand for equipment. His inventory is indeed somewhat insufficient. How many goods are there? More than 3 million. Okay, let's go to the second world and see how good it is. Ji Xia would definitely make more money by selling it to the group than selling it directly to merchants. But it was too time-consuming, and with the spare time, he might as well make more trips back and forth. The quality is pretty good, tell me. How much do you plan to sell it for? 3.5 million. Hearing this price, Shun Yuanshan frowned. Boss Ji, the prices of equipment are all transparent. If all this equipment is sold, it will cost around 3.6 million. I also have to pay the guarantee fee to the group owner. The actual price we got was only about 3.3 million. Your price is really unfair. In fact, Ji Xia also deliberately quoted a high price, deliberately leaving room for Shun Yuanshan to bargain. Even if it is the same product, the same price. Things bought at a bargain price will always make people feel that they are more cost-effective than things bought at a fixed price. This is a subtle psychological effect that has nothing to do with price, but the shopping experience. Then Boss Shun will make a price. 3 million. Shin Yuanshan gave his base price without hesitation. Deal. Ji Xia agreed. The price offered by Shin Yuanshan is quite reasonable, and he has a profit margin of 300,000. You can easily earn 300,000 in one round trip. What kind of bike do you want? Chapter 13. Ji Xia has been busy reselling equipment these days. The equipment in Jia City was sold out, so I went to Hu City and Shao City next door to buy it. I don't know why, but Hie has received thousands more travelers recently. Not only did the town's demand for equipment not decrease because of Ji Xia's reselling, but the gap actually grew. Shin Yuanshan made a lot of money during this period. As the saying goes, heroes don't ask where they come from, and cables don't ask where they came from. Although he wanted to know where Ji Xia got so much cheap and high-quality equipment, but he still suppressed his curiosity and didn't ask any more questions. Mr. Shun, you look good recently. Qin Tianming observed his words while sorting out the information. Maybe it's because I'm in a good mood and people are in high spirits. Shin Yuanshan took a sip of hot tea and took a long breath. In these few days alone, he made more than 1 million. This is net profit. In the past, companies may not have this amount in a month. And this is not the main business of Shun Yuanshan Company. It is equivalent to making more money from part-time jobs than from the main business. How can he be unhappy? By the way, has Mr. Ji's payment been settled? After several transactions, Shin Yuanshan and Ji Xia gradually became familiar with each other. So I bypassed the group owner's guarantee and traded directly privately, saving a guarantee fee. Well, I just called Mr. Ji. Well done. I can mention your performance bonus this month. Thank you, Mr. Shun. I plan to have dinner with Mr. Ji over the weekend. You can work overtime tonight and finish what you have to do. No problem. After clearing the army line in the middle, support us. Don't connect with your defense tower. The shooter is just a SB. Doesn't he know how to read signals? The smaller the ability, the smaller the responsibility. I will help with the non-stick pan. The base crystal exploded, and Ji Xia's cursing still didn't stop. There are really everyone in the canyon. Look at this shooter. He dares to choose with a 20% winning rate. I am the shooter, Zhang Tao said faintly next to him. Oh, are you the shooter? You should have told me earlier. Putting aside the facts, this shooter is quite strong. Just as Ji Xia was about to play the next round, a QQ message popped up. Shen Yuanshan. Mr. Ji, let's have a meal together on the weekend? He and Shen Yuanshan are currently business partners, so they still have to give him some face. Da Huang. Does the class have any activities on weekends? No, what? Are you planning to confess to Lin Xiaozhu again? Huang Juming joked. In the past, on weekends, as long as there were no group activities, Ji Xia would go to the flower shop to buy a bouquet of flowers, and then confess his love to Lin Xiaozhu. No, this time someone invited me to dinner, and I won't go to Lin Xiaozhu in the future. Huang Juming looked incredulous and walked over and touched Ji Xia's forehead. Do you have a fever? Why are you talking nonsense? He's back to normal. That's a good thing. How about we go to the next restaurant to celebrate tonight? Hu Shilin got out of bed and suggested. It should have been like this a long time ago. Lin Xiaozhu is famous for his green tea. He whets the appetites of a group of men, and he never announces his relationship. It's no wonder that her vote count in the school beauty election is not as good as that of Li Yunjin. She deserves it, etc. Isn't it Li Yunjin who asked you to have dinner on the weekend? Zhang Tao discovered his blind spot. Last time, the school beauty Li made a special trip to see Ji Xia in the middle of the night. Zhang Tao was the first to not believe it if nothing happened between the two. No. Ji Xia smiled and shook his head. Male, a friend I just met. Li Yunjin is probably very busy with Jin Xiao's affairs at the moment. Haven't seen her for a while. Okay, where can we meet? Ji Xia replied. Qingfeng Zue, that Sichuan restaurant does pretty good food. After agreeing on a time and place, Ji Xia stopped replying to messages. After all, he and Shen Yuanshan were not of the same age and did not have much in common. Moreover, the two are tied together because of interests. When common interests disappear, the relationship between the two people will also come to an end. There is no need to bother maintaining this kind of relationship, just let it take its course. Ji Xia, don't fight anymore? Ji Xia quit the game and leaned on the chair. When he was just a freshman, he inexplicably traveled to the second world while sleeping. The days that followed can only be described as miserable. I was hungry at night and fought with other monsters. In order to complete the system activation task during the day, he went to express his love to Lin Xiaozhu, but was ridiculed. It can be said that he has not enjoyed college life at all this year. Completely tortured. Now things are finally getting better. With more than 7 million in his account, he can eat for a long time. The system has also been activated, so there is no need to continue to struggle with Lin Xiaozhu's green tea. In reality, physical strength is also strengthened during this period. The only regret is that he has not yet mastered the ability to transform into a dragon. That state seems uncontrollable, but Ji Xia wasn't too demanding. If you haven't mastered it, you haven't mastered it. The strength of this body is completely sufficient now. If he really grows dragon scales, he might be regarded as a monster, which is not necessarily a good thing. The business of reselling equipment can still be done for a while. In the meantime, he must find other ways to make money. Otherwise, we will go back to the days of having a full meal and a hungry meal. Ji Xia still sets her sights on the second world. He is not a business wizard, nor is he a reborn person with poor information. Only in the second world can he have room to show off his skills. The weekend is here in a blink of an eye. Today he deliberately put on a dark suit and black leather shoes. He looks like a human being. The two of them had a meal in private, not a formal business occasion. But Ji Xia is too young. Being young often means having little social experience. Those middle-aged people who have been in society for many years will subconsciously despise you. If you are underestimated by your opponent, that's a good thing. But Shen Yuanshan is his partner. If you are despised by him, it will affect future cooperation. It is necessary to dress maturely. If you are found out, pretend to be the heir of a well-known company. Anyway, when you go out, your identity is determined by yourself. I took the subway for more than 10 stops. Ji Xia finally found the restaurant called Zue Qingfeng. This is a private restaurant, not large in scale, but quite famous in the local area. He had only heard about it and had never been here. There was no way. In the past, economic strength did not allow it. so we could only choose more cost-effective frozen meat. Ji Xia stood in front of the glass door, adjusting her slightly wrinkled casual suit. It wasn't until he looked like a young and promising entrepreneur that he walked into the restaurant with satisfaction. "Sir, do you have an appointment?" The front desk clerk heard the voice and came. "My surname is Ji." "Hello, Mr. Ji. You are with Mr. Shun, please." "This way. Mr. Shun has already booked a private room." The waiter confirmed Ji Xia's identity from the reservation list and guided him straight to the reserved private room. "Good." Ji Xia nodded and followed the waiter towards the private room. Inadvertently, he caught a glimpse of a familiar figure. How can I still encounter this little green tea while having a meal? What bad luck. Chapter 14. Senior Chun. I heard that you applied for the position of assistant to the president at Zhirong Technology. Is this true? Lu Mingming's eyes are full of little stars. Zhirong Technology is a company with a market value of over 100 million. Before graduating, Chun Tianming became the general assistant at Zhirong Technology. Chen Tianming has a bright future. Actually, my ability is far from enough. It is only because of Mr. Shun's appreciation that I can successfully serve as the general assistant. Chen Tianming waved his hand, very modestly. Don't listen to his nonsense. How could he not be capable enough? Tianming started a business on campus when he was a sophomore in college. He must have received the flyers for express delivery to bedroom. He started it all by himself. During the school recruitment, he even outperformed other interviewees and was valued by Mr. Shun at a glance. The boy next to Chen Tianming had a look of sadness on his face. I joined Zhirong at the same time as him, and now he is the general assistant and a senior executive of the company, while I am just an intern. Oh, it's really annoying to compare people to each other. Being praised by his friends in front of a beautiful girl, Chen Tianming felt indescribably happy. But he still said modestly, "Actually, Li Jiang is just a bit unlucky, and his ability is not worse than mine." Then he inadvertently revealed the Omega watch he was wearing on his wrist. "Senior, that watch on your hand looks good. It shouldn't be cheap, right?" Lu Mingming exclaimed. "Omega is actually not expensive, costing tens of thousands of yuan. My performance bonus this month is tens of thousands, which I can just use to buy a watch." Chen Tianming smiled calmly, rolled up his sleeves, and let Lu Mingming appreciate it carefully. "How much is the bonus? How much is the salary? Is this the simple and unpretentious life of rich people? I'm so envious, woo woo woo." Lu Mingming's eyes were filled with brilliance. "Okay, Mingming, Senior Chun is so good. We definitely can't compare with him. By the time we do our internship, I'm afraid Senior Chun will have already become the vice president of Zhirong. If we apply for Zhilong, Senior Chun will open a back door for us." Lin Xiaoju stared at Chen Tianming intently, his eyes full of admiration. Although Chen Tianming was not a child of aristocratic family, he was far from what she wanted. But the founding generation who challenges destiny is no less charming than the children of aristocratic families. Lu Mingming took out her mobile phone and quietly sent a message. "Xiaoju, what do you think of Senior Chun?" "Not bad. Is this just good? Your vision is too high." She raised her head and glanced at Chen Tianming. Chen Tianming looked at Lin Xiaoju, not hiding the affection in his eyes. "I think Senior Chun must be interested in you. Why don't you think about it? Let's observe it for a while first." Lin Xiaoju still has not forgotten his pursuit. "Stop observing. I think others are pretty good. If you are not interested in Senior Chun, how about giving him to me?" "No. I knew it. Senior Chen is much better than those licking dogs around you. You must be interested in Senior Chen too, especially Ji Xia. On your birthday, he didn't even buy you a gift, and he pursued you shamelessly. I've never seen such a stingy boy." Lu Mingming held her cell phone and kept complaining. "Hey, why does this boy look familiar?" With a glance, she noticed Ji Xia following the waiter. In the past, Ji Xia didn't have enough to eat, so she had no time to take care of her appearance. He has a good foundation, but he is unkempt all day long, and his appearance is firmly sealed. I took care of myself a little bit today, and I look much more mature and steady. He looks a little handsome. Lu Mingming didn't recognize it for a while. However, as the distance between the two became closer and closer, Lu Mingming still recognized the person. Her eyes widened with disbelief. "Ji Xia, why are you here?" Lu Mingming did not reveal that Senior Chun had invited Lin Xiaoju to dinner over the weekend. Even coming to King Fengzui is a last-minute thing. How did Ji Xia find him? Ji Xia originally had no intention of greeting them, but when he was recognized, he had to stop. "Is this street yours?" "No. Then this restaurant is owned by your family?" No. Then why can't I come? Lu Mingming was speechless for a moment. Lin Xiaozhu felt a little unnatural and moved closer to Lu Mingming, trying to avoid Ji Xia's gaze. Of course, her little thoughts couldn't be hidden from Ji Xia. I want to catch Kaizi, but I am afraid that I will be seen licking the dog. However, she was quite confident and actually felt that Ji Xia was still interested in her. Poor girl. You are so humble. Lu Mingming patted Lin Xiaozhu and told her not to worry. Ji Xia, my Xiaozhu has clearly rejected you. Is it interesting to continue to pester you like this? Stalking her will only make Xiaozhu more and more disgusted. Go back and stop pestering my Xiaozhu. Today was the weekend, and she subconsciously thought that Ji Xia came to Lin Xiaozhu to express her love. Lin Xiaozhu knew that she had to express something at this time. Otherwise, Chen Tianming will be disgusted. Didn't we agree to be friends? Why are you here? Eat. Ji Xia said concisely. Are you here to eat? Do you know how much a meal here costs? How can a poor guy who has no choice but to give gifts to Xiaozhu even on his birthday can afford to eat here? Lu Mengming's eyes revealed disdain. Ji Xia really didn't know how much a meal here would cost. It's not like he paid for the treat. Chen Tianming frowned, his eyes a little unkind. Are you Ji Xia? I've heard of you. I have expressed my love more than 90 times. This persistence is rare and valuable. It's just in the wrong place. He picked up the goblet, took an elegant sip of red wine, and continued. Men should put improving themselves first. Only when you are excellent can you attract the opposites *x. If you put that persistence into improving yourself, I think your future achievements will definitely not be worse than mine. Chen Tianming preached with the attitude of a senior, and his words were conclusive. Yes. If you were half as good as Senior Chen, Xiaozhu would have been with you long ago. Lu Mingming echoed from the side. However, some gaps cannot be caught up with hard work. No matter how hard you persist, you still can't reach the heights of Senior Chen. The compliment was very helpful. Chen Tianming put down the goblet and raised the corners of his mouth slightly. Just now he was worried that Ji Xia was his love rival. Now it seems that he is just a clown. Just when he was about to say something, the sound of leather shoes hitting the ground came from the hall. Follow the sound. Chen Tianming saw Shun Yuanshan walking towards him. He quickly stood up and went to greet him. Mr. Shun, what a coincidence. Are you coming to King Fengzui for dinner? These are my schoolgirls, and they are also interested in joining Zhirong Technology. Chen Tianming greeted warmly. Who knew that Shin Yuanshan ignored him at all? Shin Yuanshan walked straight towards Ji Xia with a kind smile on his face. Mr. Ji, why don't you go into the private room? I'm sorry for keeping you waiting. You're welcome, I've just arrived. I happened to meet a classmate here, so we chatted a few more words. Ji Xia's tone was very calm. After saying hello to Ji Xia, Shin Yuanshan walked up to Chen Tianming and introduced him. This is my general assistant Chen Tianming. I mentioned it to you. Xiao Chun, say hello to Mr. Ji. Chen Tianming only felt his scalp numb. The junior student who had just lectured suddenly transformed into the boss of the cooperative company. He looked at Ji Xia uneasily, not knowing where to put his hands. Mr. Ji, I am Mr. Shan's assistant. Just call me Xiao Chen. Chapter 15. Chen Tianming is a smart person. Be able to understand right and wrong. If he loses his girlfriend, he can find one again. If he loses his job, his future will be ruined. And he and Lin Xiaozhu haven't even gotten close to each other yet. He lowered his wrist and used his sleeve to cover the Omega watch he just bought. He walked up to Ji Xia with a humble expression. Mr. Ji, I just spoke out loud, so I hope you can forgive me. I will punish myself with 3 cups of wine to make amends to you. Chen Tianming drank 3 glasses of strong liquor in a row. The ability is pretty good, but the temperament is a bit lacking. But I don't blame you. There are some gaps that cannot be caught up with hard work. Ji Xia chuckled lightly and looked at Lu Mingming intentionally or unintentionally. At this time, Lu Mingming was still in a state of confusion and did not understand the current situation at all. Isn't Mr. Chan the general assistant of Zhilong Technology? The middle-aged man who just walked in should be the president of Zhilong Technology, with a net worth of over 100 million. Not to mention having great hands and eyes, but a rich man with a net worth of over 100 million still has a certain status. Why are they all so respectful to Ji Xia? AB*****. Mr. Shun, let's eat. I have some things to take care of tonight. Okay, please come this way. Shun Yuanshan personally opened the private room door for Ji Xia. When Ji Xia walked into the private room, his expression became uncertain. Shin Yuanshan, who has rich experience, has already guessed what happened just now. He glanced at several people. His voice was low and dignified. Xiao Chen, if Mr. Ji terminates cooperation with the company because of your affairs, you should go to the Human Resources Department and submit your resignation report. One is an assistant that is fairly easy to use. One is a financial backer who created a net profit of more than 1 million yuan for him in a few days. There is no comparison between the two. Xin Yuanshan certainly knows how to choose. The private room door slammed shut. Several people outside breathed a sigh of relief. Chen Tianming's expression was a little bitter. I thought Ji Xia was just an ordinary sophomore, so I made some mocking remarks. Unexpectedly, the other party turned out to be Mr. Ji, whom Mr. Shun often mentioned these days. This time it was kicked to the iron plate. He felt his face heat up. In the past few days alone, the transaction volume between Ji Xia and Jilong Technology amounted to tens of millions. Behind Ji Xia is definitely a big company no less than Jilong. And he, a wage earner, actually preached to the boss of such a large enterprise. How ridiculous. Lu Mingming finally calmed down. Senior Chun, Mr. Shun and Ji Xia know each other? Chen Tianming smiled bitterly and did not hide anything, more than just acquaintance. Mr. Ji is Mr. Shan's business partner. I mention him every day these days. It's thanks to Mr. Ji that I can get such a large performance bonus this month. Lu Mingming's little mouth opened in an O shape. Is Ji Xia so powerful? Why didn't I know that before? Xiao Zhu, you and Ji Xia are from the same hometown. Are their families rich? I have no idea. At this moment, Lin Xiaozhu's eyes were indescribably complicated. Xin Yuanshan can be asked to open the door in person. Ji Xia's status was at least on the same level as Shen Yuanshan, or even higher. She and Ji Xia are both sophomores. I had never heard of Ji Xia starting a business before. Moreover, can a sophomore bring the company to the level of Rongji Technology? Lin Xiaozhu didn't believe it anyway. The answer is already coming. Ji Xia must be the top rich second generation. To be able to make a figure like Shen Yuanshan so respectful, he must have inherited part of the family business. Only in this way can it be explained. Lin Xiaozhu felt that he was getting closer and closer to the truth. An indescribable and unclear feeling came to my heart. Now think about it. Ji Xia is not a licking dog. He is obviously her ideal perfect male god. It turns out that what she was after was right in front of her all along. Xiaozhu, what are you doing? Lin Xiaozhu came back to his senses and looked a little sad. Ming, do you think there is still a possibility for Ji Xia and me? It should still be possible. After a pause, Lu Mingming continued her analysis. Although he didn't even fight you when he said hello, he pretended not to care. But I think he must still like you. Think about it. He has confessed his love to you so many times. How could he let it go so easily? Ji Xia is just pretending to be relaxed. Maybe when he goes back, he will hide in bed and wipe his tears. Lin Xiaozhu felt that Lu Mingming's analysis was indeed reasonable. Hope returned to her eyes. Really? How could a boy who has confessed his love to him 99 times be able to let her go? The wine has passed 3 rounds, and the food has passed the 5 flavors. The relationship between Ji Xia and Shen Yuanshan gradually became familiar. Slowly talk about business and other things. That's how men are. They can become brothers after a few glasses of wine. Mr. Ji, I really didn't expect you to be a student of Nanhua University. Sure enough, a hero comes from a boy. Mr. Shan was joking. I just happened to catch the wind. Shen Yuanshan smiled meaningfully. Reselling second-world equipment is not something that can be summed up in one sentence. Able to continuously transport cheap equipment to Wanghai Town from hundreds of miles away. The manpower and material resources consumed are not something ordinary people can afford. There is definitely support from big companies behind Ji Xia. The prospects for the second world are so vast that it is difficult to imagine. Shen Yuanshan just took a small spoonful of the huge cake and tasted the sweetness he had never experienced before. If he wants to get more cake, he must maintain a good cooperative relationship with Ji Xia. This is also the reason why Shen Yuanshan always has a respectful attitude towards Ji Xia. Even if the relationship cannot go further, the status quo must be maintained. Looking at the accent, Mr. Ji is not from Jiangnan province? No, it's Yunza's. So, Mr. Ji was sent by his family to expand business in Jiangnan province? Ji Xia waved her hand. My family is just an ordinary family, and no one at home knows what I am doing. Ordinary family? Shen Yuanshan's hands shaking when picking up vegetables. Do you think I will believe it? College students from ordinary families just spend millions to resell equipment? Who are you fooling? Since Mr. Ji doesn't want to reveal it, I won't ask any more questions. Ji Xia didn't know what Shen Yuanshan was thinking about, and he didn't bother to explain. A few more glasses of wine. Shin Yuanshan started talking again. Reselling equipment shouldn't be Mr. G's main business, right? Shin Yuanshan knew very well how dangerous the Lost Forest was. He didn't believe that a mysterious force with the ability to transport equipment hundreds of miles would make reselling equipment its main business. I guess I brought the equipment with me along the way to make some extra money. Well, no. My main job is students. Shin Yuanshan's expression froze. Mr. G is joking again. If Mr. G has other business in the future, please support me. I'm not kidding. Ji Xia looked serious. I'm just an ordinary college student. Okay. Follow me in Versailles, right? Shin Yuanshan's eyes were erratic. After thinking about it, it seems that Ji Xia didn't lie. For his transactions with Ji Xia, the payment was transferred to his personal account. The company didn't even register yet, so it dared to test the waters with millions. Shin Yuanshan's eyes became more cautious. It seems that Ji Xia's identity is far more mysterious than he imagined. Chapter 16. I just happened to rent an extra floor of office building. Originally, it was intended to be used to develop new business. However, due to some reasons, the business was not negotiated, and the office building on that floor became idle. If Mr. G doesn't mind it, I can transfer it to your name. It may be useful when registering a company in the future. Ji Xia was stunned. Renting an office building in Shanghai was not cheap. And he does have the idea of registering a company. Then thank you, Mr. Shun, for your kindness. Ji Xia didn't refuse, raised his head and drank all the wine in the glass. Since the other party showed good intentions first, Ji Xia had to show some sincerity. He revealed some future plans to Shin Yuanshan. Mr. Shun, I have something else to do tonight, so I'll stop here today. Okay. Keep in touch in the future. As soon as he left the private room, Lin Xiaozhu greeted him considerately. Ji Xia, this is sobering tea. Don't drink so much in the future. Are you sick? You don't care if I drink? Ji Xia also didn't expect that Lin Xiaozhu hadn't left for so long. I don't care anyway. You are not allowed to drink so much in the future. Lin Xiaozhu pouted. Ji Xia has black lines all over her head. Does this woman think she is cute? Get out of the way. I have something else to do. Don't waste my time. Actually, I like you. My rejection before was just to test whether you really like me. The only ones who can test me are the party and the people. Go and cool off. Lin Xiaozhu was slightly startled, and his eyes were covered with mist. Ji Xia, please don't be like this. Can we have a good talk? Ji Xia really has no experience in dealing with this kind of thing. Neither can he push away, nor can he stay where he is. Shin Yuanshan, who then walked out of the private room, happened to see this scene. He calmly adjusted his suit. Mr. G, the lease contract for the office building is with the company. How about you come back to Zhirong with me? Seeing Shin Yuanshan helping him out, Ji Xia breathed a sigh of relief. Okay, lead the way. We'll sign the contract later. Beauty, excuse me. My boss and Mr. G have something urgent to deal with. The tall and rough driver stepped forward. Although the driver expressed it in the calmest tone, the chilling air still frightened Lin Xiaozhu into taking a few steps back. Taking this opportunity, Ji Xia and Shin Yuanshan left King Fengzui together. Shin Yuanshan's car is an Audi A8. As soon as he got in the car, the bagua fire in Shin Yuanshan's eyes began to burn. Sure enough, no matter how old you are, you all like to eat melons. That one is a high school classmate and college classmate. I chased her for a while. Ji Xia didn't hide anything and told everything. Then why did you two break up? I didn't catch him. Didn't catch him? Shin Yuanshan's tone was indescribably surprised. He looked Ji Xia up and down and asked in a suspicious tone, Mr. G is not joking, right? With Mr. G's conditions, are there any girls that he can't catch up with? I really didn't catch her, Ji Xia said seriously. She said we are suitable for being friends. Shin Yuanshan coughed twice to cover up his embarrassment. I didn't expect Mr. G to have such a past, but I think the girl seems to regret it. Doesn't Mr. G have any ideas? Ji Xia smiled with relief. If you miss something, you will miss it. It means nothing if it appears again. Second world. Ji Xia didn't resell equipment as usual today. There are many reasons. The recent influx of a large amount of equipment has pushed down prices in Shanghai town. The super-level monsters no longer appeared. People's hearts gradually stabilized, fewer people moved there, and the need for equipment also decreased. In fact, Ji Xia had thought about turning into a giant dragon and haunting the town to scare them. Promote price growth. After thinking about it later, I decided to forget it. After all, reselling equipment is not a long-term thing. Sooner or later, we will have to transform. so it is better to do it sooner rather than later. From time to time, low shouts could be heard in the school grounds. The major adventure groups were shouting nearby, and when they saw a good idea, they immediately came to greet them and sent out invitations. The awakened talents of time travelers are either strong or weak, but talent only determines a person's starting point and upper limit. A high starting point does not mean that your future achievements will be high. For example, if a time traveler awakens his fighting talent, he is timid by nature and unwilling to improve himself. Then his strength will always remain at the first level. Some life-talented time travelers who have improved to the second level of strength through acquired efforts can also easily beat him. There are currently two known improvement schemes. The first is to train in the school field and become familiar with combat skills. This method improves very quickly in the early stage, but after the strength reaches the second level, the speed will slow down. Another way is to fight monsters or other people. After experiencing a life-and-death battle, one's strength can be rapidly improved. Those adventure groups are time travelers who improve their strength through the second method. There will never be a shortage of adventurous people in this world. They don't like to stay in small towns and prefer to explore outside. Although the Lost Forest is dangerous, they enjoy it. In addition to the rapid improvement of strength, the benefits are also huge. Some furs and minions of Warcraft can be sold at merchants for very good prices. Therefore, there are also some desperados in the adventure group. Their purpose is to make money. They will cut off anyone who hinders them from making money. Ji Xia's current idea is to form an adventure group. With his strength, even in human form, he can easily deal with some mid-level monsters. The main reason for forming an adventure group is to hide from others. Bringing back a lot of materials from Warcraft every day will inevitably attract suspicion. If you have an adventure group in hand, you can make this matter reasonable. You can also accumulate reputation, lay the foundation for his future plans. Other adventure groups have a basic salary of 5,000. Including material dividends, it's at least tens of thousands a month. You only give 1,800 a month? A bald middle-aged man stood in front of the billboard and kept talking. See clearly, I didn't give you 1,800, but you gave me 1,800 to join the group. Ji Xia pointed at the billboard and patiently corrected him. Adventure groups all have a dividend system. Only in this way can the enthusiasm of team members for hunting World of Warcraft be increased. Bah, are you crazy about money? The middle-aged man cursed and left. Ji Xia has no intention of modifying the advertising words. If you go out with him, you can hunt at least one mid-level monster. The dividend is not a small amount. It only charges 1,800 as a group fee, so you can have fun. It's too expensive and I have no taste. After waiting there for several hours, no one was able to join the group. Ji Xia was a little impatient. Join the group. A cold voice reached his ears. See clearly, it's you who pay me 1,800 a month, not me who gives you a salary of 1,800. Ji Xia didn't even raise his head. I know, join the group. Ji Xia then raised his head. A face as delicate as an ice sculpture came into view. The girl in front of her had a high ponytail, her skin was as white as snow, and she exuded a kind of nobility that was not stained by dust. She just stood there quietly, with an aura that kept strangers away from her. The girl frowned. Although there were people staring at her on weekdays, they were definitely not as direct as Ji Xia. How can you just look at your breasts and legs when you meet someone? Chapter 17. Have you seen enough? The girl's cold voice came. Ahem. Ji Xia coughed twice to cover up his embarrassment. He also felt that there was something wrong with his direct gaze just now. You should look at your eyes first. Are you sure you want to join the group? Ji Xia asked seriously. What's the reason? Intuition. This reason is really impeccable. Ji Xia smiled. This is my WeChat account. Just transfer the tour fee to me when you return to the real world. Good. Don't you want to introduce yourself? We will be teammates from now on. Zhang Wan. Magic talent. 3rd level. The girl with a high ponytail answered every word like gold. 3rd level magic talent? Ji Xia couldn't help but look at the girl twice. Travelers with 3rd level magic talents are rare even among large groups and top adventure groups. It's no exaggeration to say that as long as you want, you can choose from all the adventure groups and companies here. But you chose to join a startup adventure group with only one person. Why do I feel like your motives are a little impure? Zhang Wan pursed her lips, her voice as cold as ever. They're too weak and boring. Very good. Girl, you convinced me. Ji Xia breathed a sigh of relief, worked hard all night, and finally recruited someone. During this period, the number of travelers in Wanghai City almost doubled. The town had empty rooms a while ago, but now it is overcrowded. Fortunately, Ji Xia had already been assigned a house and would not have to sleep on the street. He packed up the billboard and walked towards the small house. Brother, wait, don't leave in a hurry. I want to join your gang too. A young man of similar age to Ji Xia ran towards him in a hurry. What kind of gang? See clearly that we are a regular adventure group, certified by the guild. Ji Xia was unhappy and took out the adventure group qualification certificate he had just applied for. Hi, just the same. Don't worry about those details. The young man waved his hands, looking indifferent. How much is the tour fee? 1,080, right? How can I give it to you? Ji Xia looked at the young man up and down with a scrutinizing gaze. You also think our adventure group is interesting? What's so interesting? The young man looked confused. Other adventure groups pay me wages. You only give tens of thousands of yuan a month. Who are you looking down on? Those adventure groups that pay wages are not reliable at all. It's a paid adventure group like yours that makes me feel at ease. Good. In just 5 minutes, I harvested crouching dragon and phoenix chicks. Ji Xia is quite proud. Introduce yourself and see if you meet my requirements. Okay, my name is Chao Shiji. I have a talent for treasure hunting in life. I just traveled through the world the day before yesterday. I am currently on the 1st level. Chao Shiji introduced himself cheerfully. Brother, let me discuss something with you. Explain. It's just that the entrance fee is a bit, not a penny less. I think 1,800 is a bit too little and doesn't suit my temperament. Okay, how about I give you 180,000 yuan a month? Ji Xia, do you think I meet the requirements to join the group? Chao Shiji said with expectation in his eyes. Ji Xia patted his shoulder and said sincerely, Xiao Jia, do you have any brothers or sisters who want to join the group? Please introduce a few more. At first glance, he is the silly son of a landlord. If there were more people like this, he would make millions every month without doing anything. Oh, I have a sister, but she hasn't traveled through time yet. If she does, I will definitely bring her into the group. Okay, this is what I want from you. Your conditions completely meet the standards. From now on, you will be a member of the Fantasy Adventure Group. No matter whether he is 1 level or several levels, it is the same to Ji Xia. No matter how high your rank is, can you still be as high as him? The most important thing is attitude. This young man Chao Shiji has a very good attitude, and he is very satisfied. Really? Chao Shiji's excitement was palpable. Ji Xia nodded. From now on, you can call me leader or boss. Okay, boss. When shall we set off? Chao Shiji was eager to give it a try. Looking at the sky, Ji Xia whispered, It's getting late. I have to go to class. Okay, let's meet here at 10 o'clock in the evening. There is still some time before class starts. Several girls came out of the breakfast shop, carrying breakfast in their hands, chatting and laughing. One, didn't you go to help the freshman class? Has any handsome junior added you on WeChat? The girl named One smiled slyly. Of course, the juniors are much higher quality than the boys in our class. If you have a chance, I'll introduce you to a few. The girl next to her eyes lit up. That's what we agreed. Don't lie to me. Then, she sighed again. Alas, why is the quality of the boys in our class so low? Not even one of them is attractive. Otherwise, I wouldn't have been single till now. The girl who had been silent next to him threw the empty soy milk cup into the trash can and interrupted. Have you noticed that Ji Xia in our class has become much more handsome recently? Zhou Wenwen frowned and recalled carefully. Is there any? I didn't pay much attention. Yuan, aren't you interested in Ji Xia? Are you paying so much attention to him? No way. Don't talk nonsense. Chun Yuan's cheeks felt a little hot. At this time, Ji Xia happened to walk out of the breakfast shop with a bun in his mouth. Jiang Wan and Chao Shiji had just transferred the tour fee to him, but they hadn't had time to collect the money yet. From the corner of her eye, Chen Yuan noticed Ji Xia looking down at her phone. Ji Xia, good morning. Ji Xia raised his head when he heard someone calling him. After realizing it was a classmate in the class, he nodded slightly in response. When Ji Xia walked away, the girls started whispering again. Okay, I admit that Ji Xia is a bit handsome now, but he's too lowly. I heard that he keeps pestering Lin Xiaoju to confess his love, just like a loser. Zhou Wenwen couldn't help but complain. That's right, I heard that he confessed to Lin Xiaoju 99 times, and it will soon be 100. It's true. Another girl also agreed. Chen Yuan has a different view. In a certain way, is it considered affectionate? Yuan, you're not really interested in him, are you? Zhou Wenwen showed an incredible expression. Sure. Stop talking. Ji Xia seems to have heard it. Ji Xia was walking towards the classroom when someone stopped her. It was none other than the heroine Lin Xiaoju that the girls were talking about just now. Ji Xia, why don't you reply to my message? Lin Xiaoju pursed her lips, her voice mixed with grievance. Busy, no time to reply. Then when you are not busy, can you chat with me? Cannot. Lin Xiaoju's eyes were filled with mist. Didn't you say you would like me forever? Why don't you keep your words? Did I say that? Ji Xia looked confused. He confessed his love so many times that he actually forgot whether he had said it before. I said yes. Then just think that what I said was fart. I'm going to be late soon. Please give up. Don't leave. Lin Xiaoju's voice was already crying. Ji Xia was a little impatient. He turned around and squeezed through the crowd of spectators to leave, but his arm was grabbed by Lin Xiaoju. You are not allowed to leave me without my permission. This scene was fully visible to the girls behind. There was confusion in their eyes. Didn't you say that Ji Xia is pestering Lin Xiaoju and won't let go? Why does it feel like Lin Xiaoju has been pestering Ji Xia? My brother complained to me that the job was not good, but the next day the village lady said that my brother's monthly income was several million. Several girls looked at each other. So, it's all rumors? Chapter 18. Lin Xiaoju lowered his head, tightly closed his red lips, tears flashing in his eyes, and held Ji Xia's arm tightly with his right hand. He looked pitiful. If Ji Xia hadn't already known Lin Xiaoju's purpose, he might also think that Lin Xiaoju is a pitiful girl who is frustrated in love. However, the soft touch on his arm still made him feel distracted. Hateful. Are you going to use this to test cadres? Ji Xia, this is the breakfast I bought for you. Let's go to class together after eating. I just ate. I'm not hungry. Lin Xiaoju bit her red lips lightly and said in a soft voice, It was all my fault in the past. I know I was wrong. Can you forgive me? Ji Xia scratched his head. I never blamed you. Who else, but you can help me complete the system activation tasks so quickly. You are my top tool. Blame you? Is there something wrong with me? Really? Then let's try to be together, okay? Lin Xiaoju suddenly raised his head, with joy in his eyes. Ji Xia twitched the corner of her mouth, then sighed. We may not be suitable. Why? I know you have me in your heart, right? Since you have me in your heart, why can't you be with me? Ji Xia stared at Lin Xiaoju closely, as if recalling something. A glimmer of hope ignited in Lin Xiaoju's eyes. Sure enough, men would still be soft-hearted. After a while, Ji Xia slowly spoke. Thank you. It's an honor for me to be liked by you, but I have no plans to fall in love yet. If I want to talk, I will definitely consider you. So let's just be friends now. Okay. Lin Xiaoju. Why do these words sound familiar? The boys who were watching the excitement looked distressed. This kind of goddess-level girl confessed her love to you, but you actually refused and only wanted to be friends. You deserve to die. Is this the death of drought and death of waterlogging? Didn't Ji Xia always chase Lin Xiaoju in the past? What's going on today? I said I would lick it until the very end, but you didn't believe it. Ji Xia has succeeded, and I'm probably not far away from success either. A boy's eyes were filled with fighting spirit, and he sent a good morning to the goddess on the spot. You are not her friend yet. Please send a friend verification request first. You can only chat after the other party has passed the verification. A red exclamation mark popped up. The boy was slightly startled. No, Xiaomei. I hate you. Lin Xiaoju was a little distracted. Isn't this what she said to Ji Xia before? Now, Ji Xia has returned it intact. The bullet he fired eventually hit himself. There was a self-deprecating and wry smile on her lips. Ji Xia, actually... Ji Xia. Before Lin Xiaoju could finish speaking, Li Yunjin walked out of the crowd. She came to Ji Xia's side, poked Ji Xia's arm gently, and handed over a delicate breakfast. No, this is the breakfast I brought you. Eat it while it's hot. The two major school beauties gathered together, and the atmosphere suddenly became strange. The boy wiped his eyes and couldn't believe what he saw. No, buddy, you saved the galaxy in your previous life, right? No wonder he rejected School Beauty Lin in person. It turns out that School Beauty Li is also interested in him. If I were him, I would choose School Beauty Li too. Brother, you wouldn't be so drunk if you just ate some peanuts, and you even picked them up. That's right. If a school beauty brings me breakfast, even if it lets me drive a luxury car and live in a mansion, I'm willing to do it. Okay. You kid doesn't even want to eat or drink, and you don't even want to suffer at all. Ji Xia's eaten. You can take it back. Lin Xiaoju glanced at Li Yunjin, his eyes showing unprecedented hostility. I haven't eaten. I'm just hungry. Ji Xia took the breakfast in one hand and ate it in front of him. Li Yunjin raised the corners of his mouth and looked at Lin Xiaozhu with a victor's eyes. Then his eyes fell on Ji Xia, his eyes full of tenderness. Eat slowly, no one will compete with you. You. Lin Xiaozhu's chest heaved violently. From time to time, the crowd cast their eyes with envy, pity, and sarcasm, and Lin Xiaozhu was like a ray of light on his back. She stamped her feet heavily, snorted, turned around, and left quickly. It tastes pretty good. Ji Xia took a sip of the soy milk and commented, Then I will bring it to you every day from now on? Ji Xia looked around, his eyes wishing to kill him. He felt a little guilty. Don't talk about this yet, we will be late soon. Okay, let's go to the classroom and talk slowly. Is Jinxio's trouble solved? No. Li Yunjin sat at the desk, leaning on his right hand with his face sideways, and kept drawing circles with his left hand, not knowing what he was thinking. Then why do you have time to come to school? Li Yunjin blinked. I said I missed you. Do you believe it or not? Letter. Ji Xia blurted out without even thinking. Actually, I had a quarrel with my family, and I no longer want to deal with Jinxio's affairs. Is that just this? Ji Xia pretended to be disappointed. Of course, missing you is part of the reason. Li Yunjin's voice became lower and lower. Ji Xia turned his head and coughed lightly, pretending not to hear anything. Coach, she hits a straight ball. How can she defend against it? I disappeared for so long, and you didn't even send me a message. You be asterisk asterisk. Li Yunjin sounded a little aggrieved. I've been a little busy lately. I'll definitely do it next time. Well, I'll forgive you this time. Li Yunjin paused and then said, You're not going to secretly confess to some pretty girl again, are you? I heard that you confessed to Lin Xiaozhu 99 times. Damn it, she doesn't think I have any weird XP, right? I'm busy with things in the second world. Ji Xia lowered his voice slightly. Although the two of them were sitting in the corner, they were still worried about being heard by others. I just applied for adventure group qualifications yesterday and formed an adventure group. That's it, Li Yunjin thought thoughtfully. Then can I join your adventure group? It's not good for the daughter of Jinxio group to join a low-class adventure group. What's wrong? And I ran away from home and am now a homeless kitten. Don't you plan to take me in, brother? Li Yunjin pretended to look pitiful. Okay. Ji Xia had no choice but to agree. Then what is the name of my brother's adventure group? Illusion. Illusion? Li Yunjin murmured in a low voice. Traveling between two worlds is like an illusion. It is indeed a good name. I will also be a member of the fantasy adventure group from now on. By the way, how many people are there in the adventure group now? Counting you and me, there are 4 in total. Ji Xia said truthfully. I've recruited 4 people so quickly. It's great, brother. Ji Xia. Chapter 19. Xiangxia Yayuan is backed by the National Wetland Park and is a high-end residential area in Wanghai City. It is far away from the hustle and bustle of the city, with beautiful environment and fresh air. The residences are all single-family villas, which can easily cost tens of millions. The people who live here are the elites of Wanghai City. After a quarrel with his parents, Li Yunjin moved to his best friend Chun Shuyu's house. Chun Shuyu's parents are away from home all year round, and there are only 2 people in the huge villa, her and her nanny. When her best friend moved in, she naturally approved of it with both hands. I don't know what your parents think, but they actually want you to interact with Zhou Kuan more. Don't they know how bad Zhou Kuan's reputation is in Wanghai circles? After Qin Shuyu learned what happened, she felt indignant about what happened to her best friend. There are many rich second-generation people in Wanghai City who like to play with women. They at least know to handle it properly. But Zhou Kuan is different. It is said that no less than 10 women have had abortions for him. Some time ago, a pregnant young girl jumped from the 50th floor and spread the news throughout Wanghai. It is said that this matter is inextricably related to Zhou Kuan. The word scum just applies to him. Li Yunjin's parents asked her to associate more with such people. Didn't this push her into a pit of fire? Li Yunjin hung the clothes in the suitcase into the wardrobe. Jinxio is short of cash now, and there are only a few people in Wanghai who can spend so much cash to save Jinxio, and the Zhou family happens to be one of them, but they can't do that. What's the difference between this and selling your daughter? Qin Shuyu didn't understand. Li Yunjin continued to sort out the clothes, and a muffled voice came from the closet. They are used to living a life of fine clothing and fine food. Jinxio's bankruptcy is undoubtedly a disaster for them. For me to interact with Zhou Kuan, it's considered a medical emergency. What a psycho! Qin Shuyu cursed and helped Li Yunjin tidy up the room. Why hasn't Zhou Kuan bothered you lately? With his personality, he shouldn't. Li Yunjin blinked his beautiful eyes. He was beaten and is probably recovering in the hospital. Being beaten? Chen Shuyu stopped what he was doing and raised his head. In Wanghai, is there anyone who dares to hit the second young master of the Zhou family? Are you familiar with that person? Can you introduce him to me? You will know later. Li Yunjin smiled mysteriously. Don't tell me if you don't want to. You're a cheapskate. Chen Shuyu pretended to be angry. Huh, why are these slippers so big? Did you pick up the wrong ones when you went out? She dug out the pair of Squirtle slippers from the innermost part of her suitcase, with a look of astonishment on her face. No. Li Yunjin snatched the slippers and held them against his chest. I brought it out specially. How could I get it wrong? Chen Shuyu immediately understood that these slippers must have some special meaning, and the fire of gossip ignited in his eyes. Tell me who these slippers are. No. Okay. I didn't expect you to find a man behind my back. After having some fun, the two lay down on the bed to rest. Chen Shuyu turned her head and glanced at her best friend whose chest was heaving violently, and then looked at herself, who was so flat. Why has your place grown so big again? I remember that we were almost the same when we were young. Some things cannot be forced. You have to learn to accept yourself. I can't accept it. Chen Shuyu rolled back and forth on the bed. Unless you tell me the story about the slippers, it won't get better. Li Yunjin knew that if she didn't say anything, Chen Shuyu would definitely hold on to her. She stood up, picked up the milk tea on the table, took a sip, and recounted the hot and beautiful memories. The second world is a secret to ordinary people, but the social elites knew it more or less, so she didn't need to hide her acquaintance with Ji Xia. Chen Shuyu was like a curious baby, lying on the soft bed with her chin in her hands, screaming a few times from time to time. Hit you with a brick? Is he serious? Isn't Zhou Kuan a sports student? He has no power to fight back. He must be too awesome. A 50-meter-tall super-level monster? How did you survive? Wow, I actually helped you put on your shoes. Is this the sour smell of love? No way. We haven't reached that stage yet. Even though Li Yunjin said this, the tenderness on his face betrayed her completely. So when did you realize that you were tempted? Chen Shuyu came over curiously. Let me think about it. Li Yunjin held his chin and lowered his eyebrows in memory. It should be when he protected me behind him. At that moment, I felt so good to have someone I could rely on. Chen Shuyu showed an envious expression, but then thought of something and asked worriedly. By the way, if he beat Zhou Kuan, will the Zhou family retaliate? I believe he can handle it. Li Yunjin turned his head with a firm gaze. If you really can't stay in Wanghai any longer, the worst possible thing to do is leave with him. I have saved a lot of private money, so supporting the two of us is not a problem. Are you starting to think about elopement now? Bad woman. When you have a man, you forget your bestie. The light in the forest is very dim. The pale beam of light penetrates the gaps between the dense branches and leaves, forming mottled light and shadow on the ground covered with fallen leaves. Chao Shiji followed Ji Xia carrying a sack. Although he was tired and sweating profusely, his eyes were shining. We actually killed the 4th-level monster, the Iron-Maned Furbolg. The three of us are so awesome. Ji Xia pouted and said, besides hitting the Iron-Maned Furbolg's feet with a stone, did you do anything else? I also sprinkled a handful of ashes. Chao Shiji said plausibly. Ji Xia also wanted to complain. But then I thought, this silly son of a landlord gave him 180,000 yuan a month, so he should be encouraged. I also think the three of us are really awesome. He glanced at Jiang Wan, who was silent next to him. To be honest, he had far underestimated the strength of this facially paralyzed girl before. I thought that Jiang Wan wouldn't be able to help him deal with the 4th-level monster. Unexpectedly, her ice magic could actually freeze the Iron-Maned Furbolg. Chao Shiji's performance also exceeded Ji Xia's expectations. A 1st-level newcomer who had just traveled through time was not afraid of a 4th-level monster and even dared to hit it with rocks. Really brave. You must know that the Iron-Maned Furbolg can turn him into a pulp with just a slap. Later, he used his treasure-hunting talent to dig out 2 pieces of refined iron ore. It is simply possessed by the European emperor. As soon as the 3 of them returned to the outskirts of the town, they noticed a commotion at the gate. A time traveler who is still in the town at this time. Either they are newcomers who are afraid to leave the town, or they are workers helping to build houses, or they are guards hired by major companies. At this time, they all stopped what they were doing, carrying guys in their hands, and surrounded a carriage. There was a brown-haired man standing next to the carriage. He was dressed in coarse linen clothes and spoke incomprehensible words. There was a flattering smile on his face, and his hands were still making gestures. The three people who were about to walk into the town stopped. Chapter 20. What is he saying? Does anyone understand? I don't know. This is my first time hearing this language. Sharp-mouthed monkey cheek. I bet he is not a good guy. Maybe he is a craftsman sent by the kingdom. A group of ferocious time travelers surrounded the brown-haired man with evil eyes. The brown-haired man's hair tingled. His name is Hans, a businessman in Eagle City. A few days ago, the Ash Tyrant and the Dragon appeared outside the Lost Forest, causing the nobles of Eagle City to panic. They were afraid that one day a super-level monster would become unhappy and massacre Eagle City. For the sake of life safety, Eagle City began to expand its armaments. It was originally a small border town. Even if the surrounding villages and towns were included, the population of Eagle City was only a few 100,000. The meager tax revenue simply could not support the growing army. The frightened nobles had no choice but to raise taxes in Eagle City to support the army. Hans's original job was only enough to support his family of 5. The increase in taxes will make the already poor families even worse. Forced by life, Hans had to quit his job, rent a carriage, and take the specialties of Eagle City to other places to sell. Who would have thought that the first time I ran a business trip, I would get lost? I came to Hie Traveler Town in a daze. I'm just a businessman passing by. I have no ill intentions. If you don't believe me, you can check my goods. If you don't welcome outsiders, I can leave immediately and won't disturb you in the future. Hans spoke slowly, hoping that the people surrounding him would understand. But instead of scattering, those people gathered more and more. Someone even took out the rope and looked at Hans with a wicked smile. Why don't you tie him up first? I just learned turtle binding. Hans looked horrified and stepped back step by step until he hit the carriage. He is a businessman from Eagle City and is lost. A gentle-looking young man in the crowd whispered. Can you understand what he said? I don't understand, but my talent is the ability to communicate with the soul. The gentle young man did not hide it. Real. The man didn't completely believe the gentle young man. His registered talent is indeed spiritual communication, guild staff confirmed. Ji Xia stepped forward and stepped onto the carriage. There are wooden barrels and boxes neatly arranged inside. The wooden barrels contain fruit wine, and the wooden boxes contained fruits that Ji Xia had never seen before. After searching carefully, there was no suspicious goods. It seemed that they were indeed merchants. Ji Xia stepped out of the carriage and nodded to the middle-aged man in the lead. It's all cider and fruit. The middle-aged man breathed a sigh of relief. Let's all disperse and let him leave. The location of Hie Town is no secret. Some time ago, there was a confrontation between the noble army and the time travelers, but in the end there was no fight. There is no need to kill people and silence them. If you really do this, you will be exposed and make the kingdom master of the second world famous. He is just a small person in charge, but he does not dare to make arbitrary decisions. Seeing that the crowd was getting out of the way, Hans was relieved and rushed the carriage to escape. Wait. Ji Xia stopped him. He patted the gentle young man and said, Brother, do me a favor and ask him if the goods can be sold. The gentle young man nodded and began to use his natural ability to communicate. After a brief communication, Hans gradually relaxed. He was originally a businessman. It would be great if he could sell the goods here, and it would save him some time. I'm just worried that people here won't give me money. As soon as they met, a group of fierce and strong men surrounded him. Hans had a very bad impression of the people here. Of course, Ji Xia was not prepared to pay. It should be said that he has no currency here. The common currencies of the indigenous peoples of the second world are gold coins, silver coins, and copper coins. In Blue Star, this kind of currency can be copied easily. But this is the second world, not to mention backward technology, or is still extremely scarce. The cost of counterfeit currency may be far greater than the value of the currency. The gain outweighs the loss. I want all the fruit wine and fruit. Ji Xia threw an iron-maned furbog's bare paw to Hans. Hans was stunned for a moment, then picked up the bear's paw and looked at it carefully. Immediately, his pupils dilated and he babbled incomprehensible words. Ji Xia frowned and turned his gaze to the gentle young man. The gentle young man tried to communicate with Hans. Hans's face was full of surprise, and he was beaming with excitement. The gentle young man cannot establish a stable spiritual connection with him. After a while, Hans calmed down. He said the iron-maned furbog's bare paws are enough to buy 2 carriages of cider, but he doesn't have that much. If you believe him, he will send a car of fruit wine over in a few days. Ji Xia's head was filled with questions. Are all the indigenous people here so honest? Okay, I hope we can have more transactions in the future. Hans nodded repeatedly, his previous displeasure gone. After unloading all the fruit wine and fruits from the carriage, he drove the carriage back along the same route, humming an unknown ditty. Boss, why did you buy these fruit wines? Qiao Shiji leaned over, a little confused. Ji Xia smiled lightly. What I want is not fruit wine, but the market. A bear's paw opens the market in Eagle City, and you won't lose money on this deal. At this stage, Wanghai Town has not yet established trade relations with the aborigines of the Second World. This is a winner-takes-all era. If you can enter the market first, the profits will be absolutely amazing. You can also learn about the outside world through businessmen. This is a value that cannot be measured in terms of money. Those big figures in the Second World may not want to lower their arrogant heads and have anything to do with these time travelers. But businessmen are different. As long as it's profitable, they don't care who you are. Are you interested in following me? Ji Xia patted the gentle young man on the shoulder. What do you mean? The gentle young man's tone revealed confusion. His psychic communication sounds very powerful, but in fact it is almost a useless talent. Only when there is no conflict between the two parties can spiritual connection and communication be successfully established. But the goals are no longer in conflict, so I still need your help in communication. So until now, no company or adventure group is willing to take him in. I'm going to trade with Eagle City, and I need your help in translation. World of Warcraft materials are bestsellers everywhere. The businessman who sold it to the traveler town only had a series of cold numbers on his account. And if you sell it to the aboriginal people, you can get gold coins that are visible and tangible. Then use gold coins to purchase scarce and other supplies in the town from the outside world. Finally, if you sell it to a small town businessman, you can get a longer string of cold numbers. No, when the string of numbers on the account is long enough, it is warm. Really? The gentle young man's eyes lit up. Really? You will be the chief translator of illusion from now on. Monthly salary is $1,088. Chapter 21. Are you planning to trade with the aborigines of Eagle City? The guild staff stopped what they were doing and frowned. What's the problem? The town is jointly managed by the Pioneer Guild, which is formed by the government, enterprises, and adventure groups. The official is responsible for handling daily affairs and making general direction decisions. The company is responsible for the security of the town, and the adventure group is responsible for surrounding security. The official number is the smallest, but the power is the greatest. To do business with Eagle City, official approval is definitely needed. This is not possible in principle, but... The staff member paused and turned his attention to Ji Xia. Ji Xia didn't respond. The staff coughed twice, but Ji Xia remained indifferent. Good. It implies that money opens the way, right? If it were in the real world, Ji Xia might not be able to do anything about it. But where is this place? Lost Forest. I haven't even confiscated your protection money. How dare you ask me for benefits? Seeing that Ji Xia was so dishonest, the staff said with a straight face and a businesslike attitude. Business is not something I can decide. Let's do this. I'll ask my superiors for instructions, and I'll get back to you within 15 working days. Ji Xia curled her lips. In fact, he didn't expect this to happen. The relationship between aborigines and travelers is far from incompatible. But it's definitely not great. Some aborigines even view travelers as a symbol of disaster. If the Traverser were not located near the Lost Forest, the cost of sending troops to exterminate them would be too high. The nearby noble lords may have already led troops to conquer. The number of time travelers has increased dramatically recently, which has made the lords more and more wary. At present, the two sides are in a state of conflict. Neither contact nor hostility. Opening up trade can indeed bring development to small towns, but it also has great hidden dangers. If a businessman with ulterior motives finds out the details of the town, no one knows whether the two sides can continue to maintain a harmonious relationship. Boss, is it done? As soon as he walked out of the door, Qiao Shiji and Zhu Yang greeted him. Ji Xia shook his head. Zhu Yang lowered his head and said nothing, with a look of disappointment on his face. I thought that my gift of spiritual communication would shine brightly in the future. As a result, it was over before the first step was taken. These people really have no vision. Qiao Shiji had a look of indignation on his face. Then what should we do next? Sell all the materials to the guild? Their original plan was to sell all the materials obtained from the Warcraft to merchants in Eagle City. The guild also collects these materials, but the prices are very low. The advantage is convenience and quick payment. Many adventure groups find it troublesome and sell materials directly to guilds. Keep it for now. Wait for the merchants from Eagle City to come and then sell it. Ji Xia looked relaxed, not discouraged at all because she couldn't get things done. Didn't the guild not approve trade? Don't worry, I'm informing them, not discussing with them. Could it be that, boss, are you planning to smuggle? Zhu Yang's eyes widened. What's smuggling? Ji Xia straightened his collar and said righteously, I am a good law-abiding citizen. How could I do anything illegal and disorderly? But he changed the topic. Is there any law in China that prohibits trade with aborigines in the second world? It seems that there is no. Trading with the people of Eagle City without authorization is at best a violation of the town's regulations, not to mention illegal smuggling. But this. Zhu Yang was still frowning. But will this offend the people in the guild? Ji Xia asked back. Zhu Yang nodded. I'm a very disciplined person. If they don't blame me for flipping the table. Ji Xia sneered and said something meaningful. He is a giant dragon who just wants to be a businessman and earn a living. If those people don't know what's good and what's good, they will destroy their jobs. Then don't blame him for taking unconventional measures. Zhu Yang, the transaction with the Eagle City merchants will continue in the next few days. But the transaction must be farther away from the town, Ji Xia ordered. It's not that the guild will discover the unauthorized trade, but it's that the merchants of Eagle City don't want to know the town too well. Hans is now an ordinary businessman. But what about the future? People often cannot help themselves. And Hans is just a stepping stone for him to enter the external market. When Hans makes a lot of money here, more businessmen will flock in the future. When the time comes, there will be a mixture of fish and dragons, and the ears and eyes of nearby lords will also take the opportunity to get in. Ji Xia has no patience and no energy to deal with these trivial matters. It's better to put the transaction place outside, once and for all. He still relies on the town for food, and he doesn't want anything to happen to the town. Time flew by. Hans sent another carriage of fruit wine. There was also a bearded businessman traveling with him. He brought a cartload of iron farm tools and kitchen utensils. In fact, the bearded man also wanted to bring a carriage of weapons directly. But Eagle City strictly controls weapons. If you really pull a carriage of weapons and armor, I'm afraid that before I even left Eagle City, I was detained by the noble's private soldiers. Ji Xia didn't care. The smelting technology of the aboriginal people in the second world lags far behind Wanghai town. Even if the bearded man pulls a cart full of weapons, he still has to go back to the furnace and remelt the links. This improves purity and quality. After receiving the generous reward, the bearded man smiled happily. He also promised to bring several carts of iron products and ore over in a few days. After finishing the transaction, Ji Xia hurriedly returned to reality. Don't look at the fact that he currently has more than 7 million in his card. In fact, it doesn't take long at all. If I eat it with an open stomach, I'm afraid I won't be able to survive for 2 months. The top priority is to make money, and make more money. By the way, complete the tasks released by the system. The trade with Eagle City was done without the guild's consent. It is unrealistic to sell this batch of ironware in the group. I guess I was banned by the group management as soon as I advertised. But there is someone who can help. Ji Xia clicked on Shen Yuanshan's profile picture. Are you interested in the ironware from Eagle City? Since he established the adventure group, he has not continued to resell equipment, nor has he contacted Shen Yuanshan. Shen Yuanshan replied quickly. It turns out that the person who traded with Eagle City was Mr. Ji. How much is there? I'll see if I can eat it. About a ton. A knife weighs about 2 pounds. 1 ton of iron is enough to make nearly 1,000 knives. If they were all sold, the price would be more than 10 million. This is not a small number. Of course, iron weapons cannot be sold at the market price of weapons. The labor and time spent on remelting the melting chain, as well as future sales, etc., are all costs. And the most important point, Ji Xia's batch of goods was obtained through private trade. Taking over would mean getting on Ji Xia's pirate ship. Shen Yuanshan put out his cigarette, but stared at the chat interface for a long time. Would you rather be a nobody for the rest of your life, or be famous all over the world? He took a deep breath. 6 million. I'll take this shipment. Chapter 22. Just as Ji Xia was about to return to the second world to deal with ironware, a red suddenly appeared on Li Yunjin's avatar. What are you doing, Ji Xia? Li Yunjin turned over on the bed, replying so quickly. Have you been staring at WeChat and have something to say to me? Ji Xia was helpless. That's not true. Are you busy? If you are, I won't bother you. Li Yunjin quickly replied to the message and sent an emoticon to express his grievances. Ji Xia replied, "You're not busy. Is there anything you want?" "No, I just want to harass you." Li Yunjin raised his eyebrows in front of the screen. "I had a big fight with my mom just now. I have to find someone to complain to and spread my anxiety. Then I really thank you." A smile gradually appeared on Ji Xia's lips. The two of them just chatted about each other. How could he not know Li Yunjin's thoughts? To say that I am not moved is pure nonsense. It's just not time yet. He is still worried about having enough to eat every day. So how dare he reach the heights of the Jinxiu group's daughter? Maybe girls won't dislike boys being poor, but boys will despise themselves for being poor. How can a poor person dare to enter the prosperous world? How dare the breeze in his sleeves mislead a beautiful woman? Build a metaverse with an independent worldview? Junior, are you kidding me? Hong Lei, the president of the IT club, who was drinking water, almost choked. I prefer to call it the spiritual realm, Ji Xia said lightly. I mean, Junior, do you know how much money this requires? Hong Lei put down his water glass and said seriously, building a huge metaverse with an independent worldview is an extremely complex project. Top technology companies have invested tens of billions, or even hundreds of billions in the metaverse. Now a sophomore came over and told them that he was going to build a metaverse and wanted to work together. Could he not find it ridiculous? Alipay arrived, 6 million yuan. What a coincidence. Shen Yuanshan just came over with a payment. The noisy IT club activity room suddenly became quiet. No, junior fellow student, are you serious? It should be that yesterday's payment has arrived. Ji Xia opened Alipay in front of Hong Lei and others as if nothing had happened. 1, 10, hundreds, thousands, 10,000, brother, father, master, a full 8-digit assets. A sophomore student actually had tens of millions of assets, and Hong Lei and others took a deep breath. The implication of Ji Xia's words is obvious. He can store tens of millions of assets in Alipay, and his daily payment for goods is 6 million. The principal will only be more. They don't have to worry about funding at all. Hong Lei took another sip of water and forced himself to calm down. There may be no problem with the startup capital, but building the metaverse is not only a technical problem, but also involves creative design, economics, sociology, and other fields. I'm afraid our society is not up to the task. The IT club of Nanhua University was founded by Hong Lei. At the beginning, they got together because of their hobbies and interests, and they were passionate and did not care about gains and losses. Graduation is approaching, and the core members of the IT club are about to face life. Societies are also facing dissolution. Hong Lei has feelings for the club. I can't bear to see the society that I founded disband. Ji Xia's appearance gave him hope. But let them, a group of only a few dozen members who have not graduated from college, build a metaverse. It's really a bit difficult for them. Of course, Ji Xia knew that building the metaverse could not be done with just a few people. But the road is taken step by step. He doesn't even have a decent team now. The IT club is a good prototype of a technical team. Ji Xia glanced at the trophies and certificates placed in the event room and said, "Currently, we only need to build a trading platform to allow users to buy and sell virtual goods and services. This shouldn't be technically difficult, right?" Hong Lei thought for a moment. This is indeed not difficult, but the metaverse has not yet been built, so how can users trade virtual goods on the platform? Building a trading platform before even building the prototype of the world was really confusing to Hong Lei. You don't have to worry about this. You just need to help me build such a platform. Ji Xia's idea is to build a metaverse based on the second world one-to-one. Let people who have not yet traveled through time experience life in the second world in advance. This is a world that already exists. There is no need to build a prototype of the world before it can be put on the trading platform. When the trading platform is completed, you only need to move your fingers in reality to complete second world transactions. This will definitely touch the interests of many people. But so what? Dragons are born to challenge the powerful. Of course Hong Lei didn't know Ji Xia's inner thoughts. I just think his plan is a bit ridiculous. But since it was the boss's request, the money given was quite a lot. Of course Hong Lei had no reason to refuse such a good thing. Immediately summon the club members and prepare to work overtime to drive out the trading platform. Ji Xia thought Li Yunjin just said it casually. Unexpectedly, she really delivered breakfast to Ji Xia on time every day these days. No, why should he? Zhang Tao gritted his teeth and didn't even think about it. Pay attention to courtesy and reciprocity in everything. Ji Xia felt that she should give something as a gift, but I really can't imagine what Li Yunjin would be lacking. He just walked aimlessly on the street, looking around. How about a cup of milk tea? As soon as he walked into the milk tea shop, Ji Xia found that the atmosphere inside was a bit strange. It's fun to watch. Several gangsters with colorfully dyed hair gathered around the cashier and puffed. The young man at the head put his hands on the table and leaned forward slightly. Strike a pose that you think is domineering. Beauty. Add me on WeChat? Jiang Wan in front of the cashier just looked at him coldly without any response. Brother Feng asked you for WeChat, didn't you hear? The boy next to him put out his cigarette, and hit the table with a bang. Jiang Wan still looked at them coldly without batting an eyelid. Brother Feng frowned. Speak carefully. The younger brother smiled and stepped aside. Brother Feng secretly affirmed his younger brother's performance. This can not only shock the opponent, but also reflect his status. I just want to make friends, nothing else. His tone was sincere. Roll. Brother Feng was stunned for a moment, as if he didn't hear clearly. Say it again? Roll. Brother Feng's smile suddenly froze, and his expression became colder. I'm asking you to ask for WeChat because I think highly of you, so don't make a fuss about it. Wow. As soon as he finished speaking, Jiang Wan picked up the unsealed milk tea and poured it on Brother Feng's face. Milk tea splashed on his face. A few ice cubes slid into his collar, making him shiver. Ji Xia, who was ready to watch the excitement, saw the familiar high ponytail. If you don't want to buy milk tea, get out of the way. Don't block the road. He pulled Brother Feng away. Brother Feng, who was about to get angry, immediately turned around and raised his palms. What am I? Before he could finish speaking, Ji Xia gently squeezed his wrist. A sharp pain shot from his wrist. The boy next to him was about to help when he suddenly saw the surveillance camera in the store. Brother Feng, don't be impulsive, the younger brother reminded him quickly. It's not that the relationship isn't strong enough. It's that the stick is pure iron. Their loyalty to the world has long been broken up by 3 police batons. Brother Feng's face was distorted. He also wants to be impulsive, but his wrist was like being clamped by iron pliers, and he couldn't move at all. In order not to lose face in front of his brothers, he could only endure the pain and could not scream. At this moment, Brother Feng's face turned red, like a boiling kettle. Chapter 23. I don't like hearing dirty words. Apologize. Ji Xia put more force on her hands. Brother Feng felt that his wrist was almost broken. Yes, sorry. Speak louder. Haven't you eaten? The sound of cracking bones was vaguely heard. I'm sorry. After all, Brother Feng couldn't hold it back and let out a painful cry. Very good, very energetic. Ji Xia nodded with satisfaction and let go of his hand. Feeling that he had lost his face, Brother Feng glared at Ji Xia fiercely, and then left in despair with all his younger brothers. Wanghai is the provincial capital of Jiangnan Province, and its public security ranks high in the whole of China. If there's trouble here, I'll probably have to go in right away. I was 18 years old and was very pretentious. The moment the law enforcement recorder was turned off, it felt like the sky was falling. After being severely beaten, they have long lost their former sharpness. Now he is just lustful and lustful. Even if you give them 10 courages, they won't dare to commit crimes under surveillance. After watching Brother Feng and others leave, Ji Xia returned to the front desk. Jiang Wan was checking the surveillance video and watching it over and over again. Are you planning to call the police? They didn't do anything too outrageous. It's useless to call the police, Ji Xia reminded kindly. No. Jiang Wan didn't even raise his head, still concentrating on checking the surveillance. I want to remember their features. If I encounter them in the second world one day, I can take revenge. Retaliation? Ji Xia's head was filled with questions. Judging from the girl's serious look, it didn't look like she was joking. Good guy. Are you so vindictive? Ji Xia observed 3 seconds of silence in advance for Brother Feng and others. He knew Jiang Wan's strength best. If one day I really meet Brother Feng in the second world, Brother Feng probably had to be frozen into an ice sculpture. The milk tea has been made, and Ji Xia is about to go out with 2 cups of milk tea. Jiang Wan pursed her lips and said, I still have 1 glass left. Ji Xia turned around and smiled. I bought it especially for you. No matter what, Jiang Wan is a member of his fantasy adventure group, so he must be taken care of. If I remember correctly, Jiang Wan was just a freshman. I'm looking for a part-time job now, and my family conditions are probably not very good. A gambling father, a sick mother, a school-going younger brother, and a broken her. If I don't help her, who will? No, this milk tea shop is mine. Jiang Wan's cold voice came again. Ji Xia's smile suddenly froze. This script is wrong. Shouldn't it be that the father bets on the mother and the sick brother studies? Ji Xia parked the shared bicycle. A gust of autumn wind blew by, and he shrank his neck. It seems that I will have to buy a car when I have sufficient funds. Otherwise, it would be quite cold. Just then a Ferrari stopped in front of him. A young man about 1.8 meters tall, wearing black sunglasses, about 25 years old, walked down. The afternoon class had just ended. There are many students coming and going. Both men and women frequently looked at this sports car worth millions. I'll go. The Ferrari 488 is still a high-end version. It will probably cost more than 400 yuan to be launched, right? Yunyun, have you seen that? That handsome guy is really handsome when he drives a Ferrari with one hand. Hu Chu was very satisfied with the performance of the passing students. He put his hand on the car door and struck a pose that he thought was very cool. Then he looked down at the time again and again, revealing the green water ghost on his wrist. Oh, childish. What's so good about a sports car? If baby, honey, and girlfriend are here at the same time, there are not enough seats in the sports car. So Ji Xia is planning to buy an extended car. Hu Chu noticed the gaze behind him. Looking back, Ji Xia's eyes met. Ji Xia was wearing a bargain that she bought on CC. It is completely incomparable to the luxury brands worn by Hu Chu. He looked at the 2 cups of milk tea in Ji Xia's hand. Tisk, TSK, TSK. The disdain flashed in Hu Chu's eyes, just like a noble looking at civilians with disdain. Brother, where are you waiting for your girlfriend? That's right. Ji Xia didn't know how to describe the relationship between the two. That means we haven't caught him yet? The smile hanging on the corner of Hu Chu's mouth was even more contemptuous. That's understandable. Listen to my brother's advice. Men should not be too proactive, otherwise they will easily become a spare tire. Hu Chu hadn't finished speaking yet. There was a girl with average looks, blushing with embarrassment, and trotted over. Handsome guy, can you add me on WeChat? Her eyes shone with anticipation. Of course, you can scan me, or should I scan you? After getting Hu Chu's WeChat message, the girl was elated and disappeared into the crowd with brisk steps. When you are as attractive as me, you will know how proactive girls are. Although Hu Chu spoke in a very calm tone, but Ji Xia could still hear the sense of superiority in his words. The corners of his mouth twitched, and he didn't really want to talk to Hu Chu. Hu Chu didn't continue to ask for trouble, leaning against the car door as if waiting for someone. In just a few minutes, no fewer than 5 girls took the initiative to ask him for his contact information. He welcomes everyone and adds friends one by one. Ji Xia also discovered that he used a different phone to add friends. If you ask him about the appearance of a girl on WeChat, just use the one you carry with you to add friends. If it looks ordinary, use the one you put in the car. After adding a beautiful friend with at least 8 points of beauty, Hu Chu shook his phone towards Ji Xia as if to show off. Ji Xia didn't like him either. Silly. Hu Chu's proud expression suddenly froze, and he didn't know what to say for a moment. After holding it in for a long time, he finally spit out 2 words. No quality. Silly. I have no quality. What's wrong? Ji Xia continued the personal attack. You. Hu Chu wanted to rush forward and challenge Ji Xia in a duel. But over the years, his body has been drained by drinking and S**X, and I'm afraid he will be beaten if he rushes to him. Just when he was about to argue with Ji Xia, he caught a glimpse of a beautiful figure from the corner of his eye. Hu Chu took off his sunglasses, quickly took out a beautiful gift bag from the car, and walked straight towards the figure. Sister Yunjin, long time no see. Li Yunjin frowned. Is something wrong? The Hu family is the second largest shareholder of Jinxiu. She had some impression of the heir to the Hu family, but the impression was not very good. Hu Chu straightened his tie. That's it. I heard that Uncle Li likes to collect wine. I specially selected the best vintage Romani Conti from my wine collection. Please also pass it to Uncle Li. Hu Chu handed over the gift bag containing red wine. My home is not far from here. You won't deliver it yourself? Li Yunjin did not reach out to pick it up. Hu Chu retracted his hand angrily. Okay, I'll send it over in person later. He put the gift bag back in the car and took out a cup of milk tea and an exquisite gift box. This is for you. If you don't drink, you will easily gain weight. Hu Chu scratched his head, facing other girls with ease. But in front of Li Yunjin, he had no clue. I heard that a new Michelin-starred restaurant has opened in Binhai district. Do you want to go and try it together? No time. Someone is waiting for me. Li Yunjin bypassed Hu Chu and walked quickly to Ji Xia's side. Is this for me? Without waiting for Ji Xia's answer, she took the milk tea and took a sip. Aren't you afraid of getting fat? Why do you still drink? Ji Xia asked doubtfully. Yours is different. Chapter 24. What's the difference? Oh, Don't worry about it, it's just different anyway. Li Yunjin drank milk tea without caring about his image. Hu Chu's face was a little confused. He quietly put the milk tea and gift box into the car to hide his embarrassment. After a while, he stepped forward and smiled. I didn't expect that you also know Sister Yunjin. What a coincidence. Li Yunjin poked Ji Xia's arm with his finger. Ji Xia, do you know him? I don't know him, but I just scolded him, Ji Xia said calmly. Hu Chu. He didn't know what to say for a moment. Is it necessary to emphasize this kind of thing again? Hu Chu coughed lightly. If you can become friends with Sister Yunjin, you must be more than an ordinary person. I happen to have a Nasdaq listing project on hand. Are you interested in chatting about it? He was testing Ji Xia's strength and background. At the same time, he is showing off his wealth, connections, and abilities. Get back the face you just lost. Not interested. That's it. Hu Chu pretended to be disappointed. This project is guaranteed to make a profit. If you are interested but don't have the funds, I can give you a partial advance. I also have a 100 billion yuan universe project here. If you have more money, you can invest some money. Ji Xia's tone was a little playful. A few years ago, the metaverse might have been a hot topic. But now who doesn't know that the metaverse is a scam project? You actually voted for the yuan universe. You're crazy. Forget it. I don't have high hopes for the yuan universe. Hu Chu looked down at the time. I have something else to do, so I'll leave first. Hu Chu has some money in his hands, but he is not stupid. What is the difference between investing money in the metaverse and wasting money? A few years ago, several of his friends invested in the metaverse. How long has it been? It has shrunk by more than 90%, and it continues to shrink. As soon as he got in the car, the smile on Hu Chu's face disappeared. He stared at Ji Xia and Li Yunjin in the rearview mirror with a gloomy expression. The Hu family's industry is not limited to Jinxiu. If Jinxiu falls, the Hu family will indeed be affected, but it will not be completely devastated. Today's Jinxiu is like an old beast that may fall at any time. Behind it was a group of eager beasts. As long as Jinxiu falls, those ferocious beasts will immediately pounce on the corpse and eat it. The Li family's influence in Jinxiu is deep-rooted. If you want to get the biggest piece of meat, you must get the nod from the Li family. The simplest and most direct way is to become the son-in-law of the Li family. Hu Chu thought that the one who could get close to the water and the tower would get the moon first. Unexpectedly, Li Yunjin didn't give him a chance at all. If he loses to the rich second generation at the same level, Hu Chu will admit it. But he had never heard of the name Ji Xia in Wanghai city circles. Ji Xia, right? Very good. I will remember you. Hu Chu snorted coldly and drove away. Li Yunjin raised his head and stared at Ji Xia with his beautiful eyes. Are you really ready to invest in the Yuanverse project? Yes, construction has already started. Ji Xia admitted generously. Isn't it a little late to enter the game now? Having learned from the past, it is totally useless to cut waves and leave the Yuan universe now. It's not too late, it's just the right time. The time is just right. Li Yunjin always felt that Ji Xia had a special meaning. After thinking for a moment with her eyebrows lowered, she blinked her beautiful eyes. Are you planning to build a new metaverse based on the second world? How smart. Ji Xia didn't expect that she could guess it so quickly. So he naturally touched Li Yunjin's head. Li Yunjin not only did not avoid it, but instead squinted his eyes with a look of enjoyment. This scene made many boys passing by stunned. The goddess who usually shuns people thousands of miles away was actually slapped on the head and killed on the road. Where's the knife? Where is my knife? After noticing the unkind glances, Ji Xia coughed dryly and retracted his hand. Li Yunjin snickered for no apparent reason. Why, are you scared? A bit. Ji Xia shrank her neck. There was a smile on Li Yunjin's eyebrows. I didn't expect that you are not afraid of super-level monsters, but you are actually afraid of these. Can that be the same? The Cinder Tyrant is his fighting partner. If nothing happens, come over and fight with him. You're almost in love. What's there to be afraid of? And those people around him really wanted to kill him. It was the peak period after school, and there was a lot of traffic. In addition, Li Yunjin is so famous in Nanhua University that men and women passing by will take a second look. With eyes full of envy, jealousy, and hatred, the two of them walked aimlessly on the road. Are you short of money now? Li Yunjin suddenly asked. The funds required to create a one-to-one metaverse that restores the second world are absolutely astronomical. Even when Jinxiu was at its most glorious, selling Jinxiu was not enough. It's okay. Funds are a little tight at the moment, but it's still enough. Ji Xia didn't hide anything. Currently, only Zhu Yang in the town has the gift of spiritual communication. Don't worry about others taking away your business. Maybe someone else will awaken with the same talent in the future. There may also be time travelers with outstanding language talents who take the initiative to learn the language of the second world. But that's all for later. For now, he has a monopoly. One transaction can bring him millions of profits. And for the time being, he is only planning to do the market in Shanghai City. The cost of developing a trading platform is not much. Including the cost of purchasing a server, it only costs a few million. Spend a lot of money on promotion. Ji Xia's target group is not those who have already traveled through time, but new travelers. The old man is used to trading in the group. It is not easy to poach them, and it will also make the people in the guild jump over the wall. There is no need to completely break up with the authorities for a small profit. As long as enough new traversers accept his trading platform, those old people will naturally choose to trade on the trading platform in the future. At that time, even the officials will not be able to find fault with him. The current problem is how to promote it. There was no way he could tell those people in a big way. You are about to travel through time. Quickly download my trading platform and conduct virtual world transactions on it from now on. Let's not talk about whether it will be regarded as crazy. It is estimated that the official will hold an interview soon, so he can only spend money and promote it as an ordinary virtual trading platform. The situation in which China's major e-commerce platforms stand side by side has long been formed. To promote the Yuanverse trading platform, the funds required are absolutely astronomical. That means you are still short of money. Li Yunjin blinked lightly. The daughter of Ji Xia Group is going to invest money in me? Ji Xia asked in a half-joking tone. It's not the daughter of Ji Xia Group who is ready to invest, it's Li Yunjin who is ready to invest. She unzipped her small leather bag and rummaged through it carefully. This is the New Year's money I saved since childhood. This is the money I got from selling bags and jewelry the day before yesterday. This is my scholarship and living expenses. Also, I have 3,452.73 in change in WeChat, which I just transferred to you. Li Yunjin organized the bank cards and handed them over to Ji Xia solemnly. Ji Xia, this is all I have. Chapter 25. It can be 3,000 or even 3,452, but it happens to be 3,452.73. Ji Xia looked away, not daring to look into Li Yunjin's eyes. These words are really hurtful and critical. He really couldn't take it anymore, so he started to change the topic. Didn't you keep this money to open a BNB? Yes. Li Yunjin leaned closer to Ji Xia. But it has more meaningful things to do now. Actually, no need to be honest. I just want to help you. Li Yunjin looked at him steadily. She also knew that this little money would not make much difference, but she just wanted to help. That's all. Ji Xia suddenly stopped and stared at her with burning eyes. What do you want tonight? If everything's okay, bring your ID card and I'll take you somewhere. By the way, let's see how the brother's work is progressing. At night? A place where you have to bring your ID card to see your brother work? Is this brother serious? As the association continued, Li Yunjin's expression gradually became strange. A blush instantly appeared on his face. She didn't dare to look at Ji Xia's eyes and turned her head away, her voice sounding like a mosquito. Ji Xia, are we going too fast? Very soon? I don't think so. Or are you saying you don't want to go? I want to go. Li Yunjin's voice could almost only be heard by himself. The blush on her face spread to her ears and neck. Ji Xia handed Li Yunjin his work badge and ID card. I'm the boss anyway, so I don't need to prepare entry documents. I can just bring my ID card to complete the entry procedures. From now on, you will be the Vice President of Illusion, in charge of the Human Resources Department and the Administration Department. Why is your face so red? Is it hot? No, it's not hot. Li Yunjin's face turned redder when he realized that he was thinking crookedly. With his head lowered, his toes were almost digging out 3 rooms and 1 living room. People will pretend to be busy when they are embarrassed. Li Yunjin tugged at the corner of Ji Xia's clothes and whispered, Don't you still want to ask about work? You go ahead and I'll go downstairs to buy you drinks. After saying that, Li Yunjin walked to the elevator. The activity room of the IT club in school is too small. Not to mention installing a server, it would be crowded with dozens of computers. Ji Xia simply asked them to move to the office building. The office building Shan Yuanshan gave to Ji Xia covers an area of 1,500 square meters. There are only about 20 people in the IT club. The sound of typing on the keyboard echoed in the empty floor. According to the current progress, it can be completed in 3 days. Hong Lei pushed up the glasses on the bridge of his nose and said truthfully, However, there are some innocuous small bugs, which will require multiple maintenance in the future. Because it is developed using templates and does not require a lot of customization, the development time is relatively short. Maintenance is not a big issue. He does not plan to disband the IT department and even plans to expand its staff. Time is money now. The number of travelers exploded like a gush. If you go online one day earlier, you can attract a group of new users, Ji, and users, Kai, earlier. After a while, Li Yunjin came in carrying a box of drinks. Perhaps it was the evening breeze that made her face less red. After the two distributed the drinks, the company's first meeting was officially held. Ji Xia cleared her throat. The company has been registered, and you will be employees of the fantasy IT department from now on. The members of the IT club didn't react much. For them, it's just another place to type code and make some money. Not much different from before. Ji Xia waved the engraved official seal. That means you can stamp the internship certificate. The quiet conference room instantly exploded. Is it true? Foster father. Father, please accept my respect. This is why Ji Xia likes to recruit college students. They are young, passionate, and top-notch, and don't care about money. To put it simply, if you can eat cakes, it's good. After the conference room quieted down, Ji Xia continued to announce the company's personnel changes. I myself will serve as the company's CEO, and Li Yunjin will serve as the deputy general manager in charge of the personnel and administrative departments. Hong Lei will serve as technical director, and Lu Ming will be tentatively appointed as IT director. Although there are not many people in the company now, many departments are empty shells. But Ji Xia still broke down the functions and positions one by one. Ji Xia is not joking. He really intends to make the illusion bigger and stronger. The meeting didn't last long. The meeting adjourned in less than 10 minutes. It's not that the longer the better, it just needs to be in place to express the key points. Long, smelly meetings are counterproductive. After talking about business, Ji Xia brought Li Yunjin to the office. He pulled the boss's chair out from under the table, pressed Li Yunjin's shoulders, and motioned for her to sit down. Mr. Li, this will be your office from now on. Are you satisfied? Li Yunjin fanned her long, curved eyelashes and sat on the boss's chair generously. I would like to ask, Mr. Ji, where is your office? Right next door to you. The location is good, but the decoration is problematic. Then Mr. Li will give you a decoration plan, and I will have it renovated tomorrow. Li Yunjin's eyes flashed with a hint of cunning, and she pointed at the wall between the two offices. I think there should be a small door here. Ji Xia laughed dumbly. Good idea, adopted. We haven't gotten off work yet. Are the working hours too long? Li Yunjin looked at the brightly lit office area and asked in a low voice. Well, it's white and long. Her face turned red. I asked about the working hours. Ahem. I mean, it's been a long time from day to now. Ji Xia coughed twice to cover up her embarrassment, and then said seriously. But we don't have enough manpower and we are pressed for time, so we can only squeeze them and wait until later. Well, were you looking at my legs just now? I don't look away from a gentleman. How could it be possible? I didn't say I wouldn't show it to you. If you like it, you can still. Li Yunjin stretched his legs forward, closed his eyes, his eyelashes trembled slightly, and looked like he was ready to take whatever he wanted. Ji Xia's eyes lit up. This is not good, right? But his hand reached out uncontrollably. Mr. Ji, it's 9:30. Let's get off work first. I promised to drive Huancher out within 3 days. Hong Lei's careless voice came from outside the door. Li Yunjin stood up quickly when he heard the noise. Ji Xia's body froze, and her hand stopped in midair with nowhere to put it. It's bad for me, right? Good. Hong Lei, wait for me. This month's performance bonus is gone. Ji Xia ran over angrily and closed the door. How about continuing? The cell phone rang at an inappropriate time. Li Yunjin glanced at the caller ID and pressed the answer button. I know. I'll be right back. She looked at Ji Xia with innocent eyes. This is from Chen Shuyu, urging me to go home quickly. Okay, it's really getting late. I'll take you back. The two walked out of the office building side by side. Ji Xia reached out and hailed a taxi. It seems that buying a car must be done as soon as possible, otherwise you won't even have a means of transportation. You are the Ji Xia that Yunjin often mentions, right? Thank you for sending her home. Chen Shuyu was waiting at the gate of the community early. Hello. Ji Xia greeted. Chen Shuyu looked Ji Xia up and down. There are indeed some handsome guys. No wonder Yunjin fell in love with him. But appearance alone is not enough. She has to help her best friend take care of herself. Ji Xia smiled and said to the two of them, It's almost 10:30. Go back and rest early? Yes. Li Yunjin responded, then walked to Ji Xia's side and said in a voice that only the two of them could hear. I'll touch you next time. Ji Xia's eyes suddenly lit up. It's a deal.
Thanks for watching. You can find the next videos in the playlist linked in the info card, directly on my channel, or right here on the screen. And as always, if you have any feedback, feel free to share it in the comments too.